we're almost professional because it's exactly 11 o'clock, which means it's Friday, not half pop figures, and we're off here on Men's Radio Station. I'm Russ Kane, what's left of him. We're coming at you absolutely live from the very centre of London here in Covent Garden. I've had my espresso, all is good. It's a sort of weird thing. If I don't have that one little espresso, I can't function. So now I feel better. I'm good. If you're wondering why if you're watching on Facebook Live, by the way, wondering just a T-shirt, because I know how a turkey feels. This studio is like crazy hot. Naturally, the one person who would never think of taking off a jacket, a scarf, anything like that.
Never.
Someone I've known for far too long. Phil Dave, who is here in the studio with us. Phil looking, of course, immaculate. But another member of the T-shirt brigade, James Blake, boy wonder producer, rocking the decks and everything like that. We have excitement today here at Men's Radio Station because we have no idea if the first guest is going to actually show or not. Somehow they've gone into the Bermuda Triangle of silence, and consequently, they may show up, they may not show up.
I quite like it. It's a little bit like the Russian roulette of radio, isn't it?
Well, hopefully none of us are going to die.
Well, no.
I mean, I'm not planning to be. I'm not planning going to be. I don't want to be Christopher Walken in The Deer Hunter. Thank you, and that would be that. That wouldn't be great. Could you do me a huge favour? And this is exactly the way that John Humphreys would have dealt with it on Radio 4. Could you turn up my headphones just a little bit?
Oh, I shall indeed.
That would be
done.
That would be. I'd like it just a little bit more.
Oh, I see.
That's so loud.
I am. Yeah, but when you've been doing this as long as I have, your hearing gets horribly. And also, 20 years in the flying eye. To be honest with you, it damaged my hearing. I can't pretend it didn't. It did.
Well, from the
Wait, you were in the flying eye?
No, I wasn't. But my twin brother was. And it was definitely Ross King. The number of times that people have said they thought Ross King was coming and I've turned up, or vice versa. It's great. Ross King, who's still a good mate of mine, lives in literally under the Hollywood sign in Hollywood, a beautiful home and even more beautiful wife.
Oh, I see. I thought that was always a backdrop. Whenever he appears on television, the Hollywood sign's just behind him.
No,
that's from home.
Yeah, and when I have coffee, when I go over there and I have coffee with Ross, we sit on one of his 8,000 terraces. The house is just gorgeous. Not as gorgeous as Brianna, who is off the scale gorgeous. Just the most and the most charming, lovely woman you'll ever meet in your life. So the Hollywood sign is just behind his head. You're having coffee, and you're thinking, "I'm living the dream here, man. This is just living the dream."
I always thought it was like in the mountains, propped up, hidden away.
It's in the hills. The Hollywood sign is. You know what it was originally?
No, I don't.
Originally, it was actually an advertising hoarding for a real estate company. It was Hollywood Land, and it was just an advert. It was a hoarding. And the land part fell away. It's a very, very old sign from the 30s, or possibly 20s, but certainly the 30s. And the land, L-A-N-D part fell out. And so they just kept Hollywood. And then they thought, it's just become an iconic sign, so we kept it. But it was just an advert.
That's all it is.
It was just an advert. It was. No one said, "Hey, let's put up a sign which says Hollywood," and it's there and it's huge, but it's really in the wilderness. It's. I've been right up there, and it's when you leave LA, it's just. I don't know why we're talking about this, but it is absolutely the wilderness. Coyotes,
I think it's a
snakes. It's a sign that I can't wait to go. That's the point.
I see.
I'm itching.
You've got LA on the brain.
Totally. At the
when are you going? Are you not?
I'm. Honestly, there's a very, very dear friend of mine out there who is very far from well, and if the results on next week are not good from the next set of tests, I'm jumping on a plane, and that'll be that.
It would be nice, maybe let the producer know.
If I ever find a producer for the show, I will be the first.
Straight through the heart.
Then again, when we're playing Russian roulette radio, it actually adds to the effect if I know Russ will be here or not.
No, that'd be daft. I can do the whole thing from. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Now, okay. Yesterday, my business partner, my co-founder, Mr. Howard Jameson, the silent man, unless you meet him.
Well, I was going to say, not in person.
In person, it's not. No, it's very.
He's very vocal in person, I find.
He was in rocking
form. We love
form.
you, H, don't worry.
He was in rocking form last night. He was in rocking form. He had everybody's cracked up. we went along to Coots Bank. Well, just Howard and I begging, really, as per usual. No, we went along to Coots Bank where they were holding the This Can Happen Awards for 2019. I had to check the year there for a second. And I'll be absolutely honest, I'd been at home writing all day, and I thought, I just don't want to go. It was dark, it was raining, I don't want to go. And I put on my suit and rocked up. It was terrific. Absolutely terrific. And well done to Zoe Sinclair, who is the grande fromage, the pocket powerhouse, as I call her, of This Can Happen. It was a wonderful event, and the reason I'm kind of amping it up a little bit is because we, myself, Phil Dave, James Blake, Howard Jameson, and the whole team will be at the Queen Elizabeth Conference Hall on Monday morning. James and I will be there from about 7 in the morning. Yeah.
Didn't know such a time existed until I saw the email.
Do not speak to me, by the way.
Well,
don't speak to me.
Sorry, I don't know if you're angling for sympathy here, but can I just say welcome to my world if you didn't know 7 o'clock in the morning exists? That's lunchtime to me.
No one cares.
What's that?
No one
Whatever.
Cares. No, hang on. Here's the thing. So we are really thrilled. This thing has just grown like topsy, and a little bit of background for you, and then we're going to chat about it a bit. This Can Happen is all about mental health in the workplace. This woman, Zoe Sinclair, started it under 2 years ago. Year 1 at the conference, God knows how, she pulls in Prince William. And he turns up. I mean, like, from a standing start, right? And she knows Prince William as well as I do, i.e., not at all. This year, she's got an amazing panel. And when I said it's grown like topsy, 1,000 people are coming to the event. 1,000 delegates. It's an all-day event. And we are thrilled, honoured, delighted to be the media partners for the This Can Happen conference. We'll be there at the Queen Elizabeth Hall on Monday. Please come and say hello. You will see us. James will not be in his traditional T-shirt. You possibly won't recognise him.
If it's probably worth coming just to see me in a suit and tie.
If you need to spot him, if I'm not there from any moment, just think Ed Sheeran in a suit. And that will be James.
Is that because of the beard?
It's because of the whole thing. The whole Ed Sheeran thing is just completely taking you over now. I don't know what's going on here. Phil Dave will be dressed in. It'll be something spectacular. Yeah, smart casual for Phil is like Regency buck for everybody else.
Thanks.
I think that is the phrase. And 1,000 people there. I mean, the people who were there yesterday.
I've heard something very similar.
Yeah, stop it now. Stop it. It's the great and the good and just an amazing thing. And why we're so excited about this Can Happen conference and why we're so is because next year, 2020, please God, we get through this year, is we're along the many things that we're going to be majoring on. We're really going to be majoring on mental health in the workplace. We're all geared up for it, and it's going to be one of our huge focuses to remove, as with all aspects of mental health, remove the stigma away from it. It's very disconcerting. James is, I don't know what he's doing. He's either playing Tetris or answering messages. Phil is like the Liberace of the laptop, and he's like, I don't know what he's doing there. And there's me. I mean, where is the support, boys? Where is the love?
Sorry, what did you say?
I know, this is it.
Was someone talking?
Yeah, I had other things to do today. I've started book 2. Book 2 has started of the Gatekeeper trilogy.
And there's something I wanted to touch on. Because obviously you were writing for book 2 yesterday. And I'd love to talk a little bit about isolation and what that can do to people.
Go ahead.
Because you said that I was at home all day, probably isolated, I'm guessing.
For the last 3 days.
For the last 3 days.
At least 3 days, yeah.
And I mean, you said that you didn't want to go to this event. You said you were feeling very down. And I think...
No, I didn't say down. No, I didn't say I was feeling down. No, I wasn't feeling depressed. But ask your question, because it's a very, very valid point.
Well, do you think that the reason that you were so against going was because you had isolated yourself?
Totally.
And were you feeling... what did that do to your mental well-being?
I have been speaking to my dog for a week and a half. I'm not joking. I have actually, and I've realised I'm talking aloud. I mean, not in the studio, because that's my job. I mean, at home, I realise I'm talking aloud to the dog.
But actually, I think there is something in that, because when I find myself in the house on my own, which occasionally happens from time to time, if the family is away or anything like that, and I'm left looking after the dogs, which also happens, I do talk to them a lot. And I think it's therapeutic. I actually think it's quite good to be able to talk out loud, because any thoughts you've got going through the mind are better off out of the mind and actually saying out loud.
It sounds silly, but you're absolutely right. And if one of the things I find is if you get negative thoughts, and everybody does, and I would defy anybody to say they don't get negative thoughts. Of course they do. And I actually yell at myself and talk to myself through it, because they're only negative thoughts. Who's putting them there? You are. You're in control of it. And it's something that takes a long time to learn. In fact, I'm sorry to bring up Los Angeles again, but I phoned my friend. I phoned my friend who's he's going through cancer again, and it's not looking fantastic. And he is my oldest and best friend, and he's he's a very dear friend to me. And I phone him a lot, once or twice a week, and we have a long chat until his voice gives up, and then I have to stop. We were talking, he was saying this, that, and the other, and I said, you know what you're doing? You're catastrophizing. It was one of our guests, Phil, that we had here. I can't remember who it was, or it might have been. Actually, do you know what it was, James? It was the conference you and I went to, that men's...
The Soul of Man.
The Soul of Man. We left when they started doing Viking songs. Basically, we looked at each other and said, sod this for a lark, and on Saturday we're going. So I just gave James the look, which he knows now, and we got out of Dodge in a hurry. Okay. But the rest of it was
wearing
brilliant.
Their metal shields.
We were gone by that point.
We don't know. Phil, we loved the conference. We loved speaking at the conference. We were very flattered and honoured to be there. But when they started doing Viking songs, see Nora. Anyway, we burnt rubber all the way back to town. So, what was I saying? Oh, yes, catastrophe. They built that up, and they said one of the things is, when you have the lowest point of your day is often 3. I don't sleep, as you know. So 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, when everything can look dark.
And you're very isolated as well.
And you're dark, yeah. And it's dark. And you think this is going to happen. 95, and statistics, I hate this phrase, but it happens to be true. 95% of all the crap that you think is going to happen to you never, ever happens. It's called catastrophizing, and it doesn't happen. It's just your mind running through all the rubbishy things that have happened. They're not going to happen.
You know what, though? You say that you hate statistics, but actually statistics are never wrong, because statistics prove that. Thanks. Do you know what? You were saying about before how you notice how he changes the subject really quickly.
What?
Before when you were saying about how you have a go at yourself and you talk to yourself.
Yeah, sure.
I was thinking that the number of times that most people have been brought up to believe, and I'm just paraphrasing here, so don't necessarily quote me, but the number of times people are told the first sign of madness is talking to yourself.
That's what I wanted to say when you said talking to yourself, but go on.
But I actually think that you are in danger of going, quote, more mad if you don't talk to yourself.
Well, we have to be careful with our language.
No, that's why I say quote.
The word I get it in parentheses, but the thing about, we can't say the word mad anymore, but I totally understand what you're saying. I think I honestly do think if you verbalize these feelings and you hear them out loud rather than them rattling around in your head, you think, this is nonsense. This isn't going to happen.
I think it makes them more manageable, right?
Yeah.
If you verbalize it, it makes it so you can deal with them a bit better. It's almost like you're letting the steam out of the kettle.
It's nicely put. Letting this fire.
I think we've peaked too early.
That was it.
Might not get any better than that.
We got 3 hours with guests, but James, that's it. You've earned your money today. That's letting the steam out the kettle.
But that's what it is when you're verbalizing.
Except the kettle is designed to steam. I'm being pedantic, obviously.
But at the same time... No, but at the same time, you could suggest that the human mind is designed to think, but also designed to verbalize as well, or to actually put across. Maybe some people are not necessarily in a position where they can talk and say out loud, but there is still a way of releasing that pent-up anger and that pent-up frustration, one can, as it were, help themselves by just letting off proverbial steam in whichever way you do it. Now, unfortunately, of course, there are some who choose rather dark and dingy paths to go down in order to do that. But
like what? I don't think we should dance around it. Say what you mean. Oh, seriously, say what you mean.
Okay,
you mean drugs?
Seriously, drugs and alcohol.
Yeah,
people go down those routes, and that's their way of venting whatever demons they have. And it's nearly always. I don't have any statistics in front of me. You'll be delighted to hear. But how many times do you hear one of two scenarios when someone turns to either drug or alcohol substances? They will say it's either for attention, or
I've never heard that.
Oh, no.
I've never heard that. You heard that, James?
No.
People drink and do drugs for attention?
For attention?
For attention. So, in other words, if they feel like they're sort of a shadow of what maybe the rest of their family are. Then
I'm not following this at all. I've never heard this before.
So it's like a cry out for help, right?
Exactly. In other words, there's a cry out for attention because for whatever reason, let's just say that you live in the shadow of a very large family or a successful family who are maybe
That's
more
twice for me in that case.
who are potentially more successful than the individual who turns to such substances. They do it as a cry for attention or a cry for help. It's with a great number of things that could be the case. But if it's not even so much that, the other, of course, is that they turn to it as a frustration, a release.
No, I get that. It blind blocks it out.
Exactly.
Blocks it out.
Drowns out, or it does actually sort of help someone, or at least they think it helps them to deal with whatever they're going through.
It doesn't.
No, of course it doesn't.
I mean, it really doesn't.
In a million years, I'd never condone such behaviour. Of course, it doesn't help at all.
No, I'm not.
I
wasn't proposing that you were endorsing it.
I know, just to make it clear, though, there may be someone listening to this thinking, really?
What, Dave, druggy? No, I don't think anybody's thinking.
No, rest assured, the most adventurous I've ever got is Nurofen. But
wow, get you!
I know, right?
You are the
Actually, no, I lie.
Hunter S. Thompson of North London.
I totally lie. Nurofen Plus, check me out.
Got your stash.
Thank you. Well done. Very good.
It's
but I find it sad that someone doesn't actually believe that they've got any other routes to go down. I think that's their only option to release whatever. I
think it's because they think that they can't talk to themselves. They can't verbalise these thoughts and feelings. So they see it as that. They see it as having to go.
We've had 100 and how many guests on?
130 something. I think it was
130
something.
James came up with the stat the other day. So we've had roughly 140 guests on men's radio stations since we kicked off in January this year.
Most of those were on last week, arguably.
Oh, last week was like Grand Central Station. It was fabulous. What a fabulous show that was. We could only dream. And of those 140 guests, a lot of it, the information that we've garnered from it and the communication that they've given us, the wisdom that they've shared, has been a rocket ride. It really has. And I found it, personally, apart from the fact that I love the whole concept of men's radio station, women's radio station, I love it. But it's been very useful. It's been very educational, and it's been of great practical help. Most of these things, I remember I had a friend who was crazy about the Tony Roberts then. Is it Robbins or Roberts? I can't remember.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. This'll change your life. And actually dragged me into a bookshop. Read this. And I kept reading it. And I thought, I'm getting nothing from this. I'm getting absolutely the square root of zero from any of that. And the guy's a multi-squillionaire. He's hugely successful. I'm not knocking that. But I couldn't relate to it. I didn't find anything of practical use there. It was all theoretical. Whereas so many of the guests who have come in have been so practical with its little things. It's not huge seismic shifts. It's little things which are wonderful ways to cope. Because we're all stressed. Everybody's stressed. You've all got different stresses.
One of the biggest things that I've definitely picked up is that we are social creatures and that we need to be around other people and need to have that social experience, which is why when you spoke about being isolated, immediately I wanted to jump on that, because I definitely think, I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, but I definitely think the reason...
Well, that comes as a shock.
Dun, dun, dun. The reason I think that you didn't...
That was a proper duff moment there.
Ding, 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 ding.
I'm trying to make a point, guys.
We're
No, I
listening.
know, but it's more fun.
We're listening. Yeah, I know. Just-
Well, I think there was a direct correlation between you not wanting to go and the fact that you had been isolated for 3 days.
yeah.
I think if you'd been out the house and doing stuff, you would have been much more...
Well, I was out the house.
Wait, do you actually believe it's not possible to enjoy your own company?
No,
Ever?
I didn't say that, but I say
Because
that...
we're not Phil Dave.
That you can't be... Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a quiet Sunday by myself watching a movie.
I was going to say, come on, wait, everyone needs a bit of me time, surely. I think it works both ways.
But I think but you can't isolate yourself completely.
It's a balance.
It's a balance.
James is right, because you do start to get really cut off. And I think there were a couple of days I didn't speak to anybody at all.
If I do it, my head goes.
Yeah, but it's difficult, but you have to stay focused. And if you are working on projects which require total attention, and only you can do the project, the writing, the actual labour of it, you got to just lock yourself away, and that's all there is to it. And that's all there is to it. One of my friends is a very successful author, English from the north of England. Go figure. Has lived in Canada for many years, and she has just rented a hotel room in Los Angeles, come down from Vancouver, so she just has to lock herself away from the house and the dogs, husband, everything, to just get on it.
But I still imagine that this person would maybe go to a coffee shop, talk to some
she's
people,
doing that.
would
She
mingle.
did. Yeah, she might, but she is on her own. Let's hope her car doesn't slide into a ravine in a snowdrift, and then a woman comes and says, "I'm your biggest fan," when she's left. We don't want that. We don't.
It worked for Stephen King.
Oh, you just wrote it was like quite an elegant little reference, and then you just kind of put your size 8, I'm guessing.
Not bad. 7.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Size 7.
Yeah, size 7.
Dancer's feet.
By the way, now, can we have all the ways that everybody can join in on this mayhem? I don't mind who does it, but it's not going to be me.
I see. Well, I suppose I could always start off by telling you that you can call 0203 290 4411. Or, of course, if you'd rather, you could always join us through the world of social media. And I suppose, Mr. Blake, I'll hand the baton to you for that. For nothing else.
To join us through social media, you can find us on Twitter at Men's Radio STN. That's Men's Radio STN. It's the same for Instagram as well, Men's Radio STN. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Men's Radio. And if you go to facebook.com, you can see us in the studio.
Yep.
You can see Phil's lovely outfit.
It's an outfit and a half. Let's not kill ourselves.
I'm so sorry to correct you, but facebook.com/Men's Radio STN as well.
Is it STN?
Yes.
I should know.
Do that one again for everybody, including me, because I get so lost. What is it?
Facebook.com/Men's Radio STN. Once again, that's Facebook.com/Men's Radio STN.
What are you giving me a look for?
I don't know.
What have I done now?
Oh, how long have you got?
Well, I've got like about 3 hours to be honest with you. So
it looks like it might be a very great 3 hours, if that's not a mix of grammatically incorrect stuff. But
So I don't care. You ever listen to Radio 1? They can't string a sentence together.
this is very true, but luckily they've got the music to remedy it.
Which is even worse. They can't string a song together.
Not a good song, if you ask me.
Have you ever heard Radio 1? Actually, no, I'm not going to start denigrating. Come on, this is silly.
So what would
They've got a bit more of an audience than I have, so I've got to be nice. So.
Yeah, you got me.
Thanks.
They don't have me, so there you go.
That's true.
Do you know what the average age? Here's an interesting thing. The average age of the listener of Radio 1 is...
Well, isn't it they're supposed to appeal to 18 to 30,
I was
but
gonna
actually
say
they
80.
end up with around 15, 16-year-olds?
43.
I'm sorry, what?
43.
Is the average age of the listeners of
God.
Radio 1?
I know.
Wow.
I know. The point is the demographic. It's all madness, which is why we. And I'm not just saying that so I could segue this in like a sledgehammer, but here at Men's Radio Station and Women's Radio Station, we know who we're talking to. We know and hopefully understand. Don't say that. Our demographic and the interaction that we get is lovely. It is really lovely. It means a heck of a lot to us. We had people last week. They were watching in California. Some people watching in Jersey. Some people watching in France. Somebody else is watching in Germany. It was a lot of fun.
Someone's just joined from the Greenland. Oh, no, sorry, Green Room. Sorry. They're watching in the Green Room.
That was like the greatest introduction I did for my friend Hilary O'Neill. We were doing the celebration. It was some time ago.
Hi, Hilary, if you're listening.
And Penny Horner phoned me, and I was on a tiny little boat in the middle of a Norwegian fjord. I tried to explain it. She said, I don't care. Listen, you're doing it. It's one of the funniest conversations I've ever had. I was in the most obscure place in the world, in the middle of a fjord.
And Penny will still find you.
And Penny found me. Only Penny Horner could find me. And I said, and the introduction was, ladies and gentlemen, somebody, I'm going to introduce you, so it was a big thing on the stage. I'd like to introduce you now to somebody who's just had a hugely successful sellout tour of Sweden and Norway. I'm so sorry.
It's ABBA.
Do you know, Phil?
What?
Phil, when you're doing a gag, shut up. When you're doing a gag, you just ruined the time. I can't even do the gag now. It's completely ruined. The timing, the beat, the whole rhythm of it. It's completely ruined.
Well, I knew it'd be my fault somehow.
Well, it is, because you just trashed it.
Goodness
It was a lovely little story, too. I'm not going to do it now. There's no point. Absolutely no point. Now, have you had
I won't lose sleep. It's up to you.
What?
I won't lose sleep. It's up to you. Go for it.
No, I can't now.
Oh, okay.
I can't. The moment's gone. The moment, it's like
You were
romance.
saying before about when
The romance, it's like romance. The moment's gone. When it's gone, it's gone. It's
I
finished.
wouldn't know.
Well, we know. Well, you got Monty and Carlo. They love you.
Hey, look, bestiality is frowned upon. I don't get that.
I don't, for
Like
God's
dogs.
sake.
Don't go there,
That's
man.
disgusting. Do we have any notification from mystery guest number one whether mystery guest is rocking up, not rocking up? I'm just curious. You know, as producer, you might know. I don't know.
I do believe the mystery guest should be here.
Wow, that is
hurrah.
That is great news.
Before we do go to mystery guest, I would like to say very quickly on the point of walking, or you said a friend of yours booked a hotel in LA just to escape from everything. There's a very good friend of mine who's trying to write a book at the moment, and I can't count the number of spontaneous holidays he's gone on, or staycations he's gone on, just to get away from city life and just to be in the middle of nowhere to write. So there's definitely something in that.
Yeah, I get that, but oddly enough, I only write best in the city. The countryside freaks me out. This is Men's Radio Station. Back in a mo.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental wealth and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
And welcome back. If you've just tuned in, whatever the blithering expression is I'm trying to say, you have already missed a rather intriguing first half hour here on Men's Radio Station this morning. Russ Kane, Phil Dave and James Blake with you through to the hour of 2 o'clock this afternoon. And we very much hope that what you have gathered from the first half hour is that it's not always about getting guests on Men's Radio Station. Oh no, we actually quite like once in a while just to chat amongst ourselves. And the reason we do that is very simple. It's because, as our strapline would suggest, there is a great relevance and a great importance to actually more than just having a bit of banter, but men actually talking. And I have to make a confession now. Okay,
Uh-oh.
Are you ready for this?
What, 20 quid you owe me or what?
No, the confession is that I actually relish coming to Men's Radio Station each week because in some very strange way I find it quite therapeutic.
But you hate me.
It makes me so grateful for what I have during the rest of the week.
That's right. The rest of the week
that
is
it's almost worthwhile.
I have a confession, and this is it's the first time this has ever happened in our history at Men's Radio Station and Women's Radio Station, is that our next guest has left. And the reason our next guest has left without coming into the studio is because they work, I'm not going to mention the company, for a large corporate, and didn't appreciate, for whatever reason, that this is a live show. And this large corporate insists that they listen to everything that goes out from any employee. Personally, I think it sucks, but there's nothing I can do about it. A very nice person, and I obviously cannot possibly break, they're contracted and the rest of it, so these things do happen. So unfortunately, the charming person, who was lovely, I was just chatting to, we will be speaking to them on Monday. They were there at the awards last night. They will be at the Queen Elizabeth Conference Hall on Monday. They'll be coming to talk to us, James. I've told them to look out for us. And they've had to go away, which is, it's disappointing. And it's a little weird as we head up for 2020 that a corporate, I'm putting my neck on the line a little bit here, but it's how I feel, that a corporate wouldn't trust one of its employees just to speak on their behalf without having to first vet it. I find that in this day and age a little bit strange, because there's nothing going to be, we're not contentious here, we're not adversarial, we don't try and trip people up. It's all about communication and trying to help others as opposed to hinder.
Which is fine, but I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. Number one, when you have, by and large, the mainstream media is not necessarily about that. And there is this notion of trying to, quote, trip people up once in a while. And the other factor as well I'd suggest that you have to consider, I guess, is that if they are working for a large company, that large company has got to be very careful about putting their neck on the line. And if one of their own is there in a capacity representing that company, and for whatever reason accidentally says something that is not part of that company's ethos, their mindset, whatever it may be, I think you can sort of understand why they do have to play it cautious. So I agree. I would say trust implicitly, trust not just the employee, trust the radio station as well, that they're going to treat the individual with the respect they deserve. But I guess.
No, I get it. I live in the corporate world, and, most of my life was a corporate writer. So I totally understand. It's just personally disappointing because they were going to talk about mindfulness, which I find interesting, and how that helps in the workspace and all of that. Hey ho, there it is. Anyway, they'll talk to us on Monday, and you'll be able to hear part of that. God knows how many people are talking to us. I know that James is keeping a schedule, aren't you? Please nod. Please,
yes,
I'm begging you.
Yes.
It's going to be mammoth on Monday.
Monday's going to be a
busy day.
A Monday mammoth meeting. I was trying to think how much more alliteration.
M&M.
Yeah, no, I can't eat those anymore. I can't.
I can.
No, there's nothing of you. That's why. Speaking of nothing of, Dennis is back from Philippines.
Hurrah.
Dennis is head of social media, back from the Philippines, right? If he looks any damn younger, he's kind of a fetus. This is ridiculous.
I do have a bit of an issue, though, when Dennis is near me, because he's one of the few people who actually makes me look obese.
No, Dennis is so slim and so young looking. He's like Tristan. Another person who gets on my blooming nerves as well. Tristan Lee, nearly 50. He looks 24. I hate him as well.
Well, there you go.
I know.
You surround yourself with people
Well, it keeps me sparky.
Is that what you call it?
Right, what are all the ways that people can get hold of us, which is nice? Go on, do another throw out again.
Why not, indeed? Well, look, if there is actually, I tell you what, based on that our guest is not here to talk about mindfulness, we would love it if you out there in listener land would be so kind.
Listener land?
I know, isn't that shocking?
Oh, wow, that's an
80s-ism.
That is like one of the... Do you know, I got my hand physically slapped once in about the first week I was on radio, or first couple of weeks, because oh my god, wow, listener land.
Yeah, I know,
because you said listener land. I'm always scared to say
I don't think Russ wouldn't say anything as unprofessional.
I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you exactly what it is. Is that radio? You're talking to one person. That's
absolutely.
You're talking to one person, and the moment which all the old radio jocks used to do, hey everybody out there, and all this stuff, you're just one of a crowd. And radio, especially speech radio, and particularly men's radio station and women's radio station, you are speaking to one person. It's a one-to-one interaction. And that's what it's about. So when you do things, hey everybody, or listener land, or hey listeners, and there's all sorts of things which I have never, ever said.
So if I say, hey, listener...
Well, that's just aggressive, isn't it? That's just showing your 24-year-old aggression.
I'm talking to that one.
Good Lord.
person.
Anyway, right.
Move
Well,
on.
so I would suggest to you that if you have any experience whatsoever of mindfulness, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the workplace, though, of course, that's what our first guest was going to talk about. But if you have any experience of mindfulness that you would like to share, we would absolutely love to hear from you. And you know what? I know there are loads of people, when they think to themselves that I'm not going to bother interacting with the radio station, I'd just rather listen to it, which is great. That's lovely. But it's not the same. I suggest that if you have never phoned a radio station before, this would be a great radio station to call for the first time. And the reason I say that is because this is not hard-hitting by any stretch of the imagination. We're not going to come at you with like a hard-hitting interview where suddenly you're going to think to yourself, oh, I can't keep up with this and I don't like it, getting very freaked out. You don't need to worry about that at all. Just phone up and all you have to do is just share your experience. And if it's your experience, well, frankly, you're the best person for the job. So if you call us on 0203 290 4411, you'll come through to, well, I don't know who you come to, really. I've never called that number, but you'll come through to somebody and ultimately you get through to the studio. But we want to hear from you. 0203 290 4411. You can also contact us through the world of social media.
And to contact us through the world of social media, as Phil Dave put it, you can go through our Twitter account, which is @mensradiostn, which is monitored by the lovely Dennis. We also have an Instagram page, which is mensradiostn. And you can find us on Facebook as well, which is facebook.com/mensradiostn. If you go onto the Facebook page, you can actually see us live on Facebook now as well.
It's absolutely true. James doesn't lie to you. So if you did want to have a look at what
wait
is
a
going on in the
minute.
studio,
What do you mean James doesn't lie to you?
Definitely not.
What have you been doing all day? Oh, I've been very busy. I've been
If you did want to see what is happening in the studio right now, which I have to tell you is a treat, because actually it's quite peaceful in here. It's quite nice. I mean, I have been responsible for quite a lot of tumbleweed in between the so-called bad jokes, but I'm sort of used to that after a while. But it's nice. You'd be able to put faces to names, or names to faces, whatever the blithering expression
I'd be very interested to see if they could guess who's who.
Oh, I think they'll know.
How can they not?
James Blake's the one wearing the black T-shirt. Russ Kane's the one in the white T-shirt.
Yeah, right.
And there's
just
only
like
one
Sheeran.
Phil Dave.
And Phil Dave could only be Phil Dave. Phil Dave has a unique style. I mean, and I'm not being disparaging in any way. He has an absolutely unique style that is only Phil. No one else could get away with it.
I can only assume that you've never been to Japan, because I was really shocked when I was in Tokyo in 2013. No one batted an eyelid, and that's because I've realised that my style is actually quite Japanese without realising it. They wear a lot of jackets, a lot of monochrome.
No, I get all that.
A lot of silly hair.
It's the trousers.
Hey, now
Today
don't knock the trousers.
Today is the trousers.
Do you know what? These trousers...
If you can watch it on Facebook Live, you'll see what I mean.
These trousers, there is a reason behind this story, okay? So hold fire and don't, just bear with me. I'm sorry.
Listening.
I'm not saying that we're filling here because we don't have a guest to talk to instead. Now I'm talking about trousers that I'm wearing. This is radio at its finest. But what happened was I purchased these from a well-known, I should say, bargain shop, because the one where you have lots of different brands that at the end of the previous season or something like that, and you have to rummage around to find them. That's the one. And what happened is that when I went up to the counter with them, I'm not joking, the person behind the counter who was serving me turned to her colleague. She said, quote, "I told you someone would buy these eventually." Which made me feel absolutely marvellous.
That is just... Yeah, did she miss that one day of training that they give them? When I say one day, I mean 30 minutes of training.
I did say to her, look, you do know that hasn't necessarily boosted my confidence in purchasing these. I was umming and ahhing. She said, oh no, I think they're great. But then she said, but everyone else here thinks they're awful. I'm sorry, what? What is wrong with you?
This is definitely sales.
You have clearly not gone to any school where they teach you how to sell stuff. And I actually thought, but actually, do you know what? She did a very good job, because on principle, I had to get them off.
Of course you did.
Had to.
Sod that.
Oh, so do you think she was doing some sort of reverse...
No, she wasn't that clever.
Jedi mind trick. No?
Yeah, that's right. Jedi. And suddenly the whole...
reverse psychology.
The whole till just lifted off the counter there.
But reverse psychology is such a bunkum, because to me...
Crap. It just means you got it wrong and you're trying to do some fancy footwork.
Either that, or for me, as far as I'm concerned, I just, once my mind's made up, my mind's made up. I don't need someone to try.
But isn't that the whole point
around.
of reverse psychology, is to making it so your mind's made up? That's the whole point.
Well, no, the idea of reverse
to trick
psychology.
you,
The idea of reverse psychology is to make you believe that you've come to the conclusion that you've come to on your own, when you might have already come to the conclusion anyway.
James, you're the finest producer I've ever worked with. God, try that. See how that works out for you. I don't know. I'm not helping you. I'm not helping you. You've got to work the whole thing out. It's a conundrum and a puzzle and a mystery.
I'll get my calculator out and I'll come back shortly.
Yes.
Go figure.
Yay.
Thank you.
The last time I was at the doctor's, he to say that he's blunt is slightly understatement.
What, James Blunt?
No, that's a singer.
Oh.
And thank you, he's here all week, try the chicken. And I went there and I had some back pains following my car crash. And he said, oh, by the way, you're pre-diabetic. Just like that. He just said, oh, yeah, your blood tests are back, which I'd had months and months ago, forgotten all about them. He said, yeah, you're pre-diabetic. And I turned to him and I said, Dr. X, I said, it was a strange name. Dr. X. I said, Doctor, I said, when they stop it. Well, I said, when they, did the lecture on bedside manner, were you ill that day? I couldn't help it. I mean, what a way to break the news.
Have you been to the doctor between now and last week's show, out of interest?
No.
Have you had your, what is it, the PAC?
No.
PH.
No. Come on, let's get it right. We're supposed to be helpful.
What was it called? I can't.
PS, isn't it PSA?
PSA.
It was the PSA, yes, because I remember
PSA test.
Yeah, the PSA test.
I have not, but I've been in much contact with him.
Oh,
yeah, we've had a big exchange on LinkedIn and everything like that. He's a very good fellow, and I am going to see him, actually. I think I'm going to go and see him and have a complete...
And have the full
check.
The full
Because,
work.
to be honest, I don't feel great. I don't feel 100%. And I'm going to go and see him and see what's what.
Well, he seemed to know his stuff.
Well, he should do. He's like one of the top guys in his field of prostate cancer, and I thought he was excellent, absolutely excellent. We're going to get him back. He is now officially, in my head, a friend-o show.
Friend-o show.
Well, I borrow.
Hi, BB, if you're listening.
I borrow that from BB Lynch, who is a good chum, and we are so vicious to each other on Twitter, and people must think we absolutely loathe each other.
I tell you what, you were like the social media equivalent of that comedy show on ITV that stars Sir Ian McKellen and, oh gracious me, what's the other chap who's in it?
Derek Jacobi.
Yes, Vicious.
Vicious.
It's brilliant. You were like the social media equivalent. So you just cut each other down.
Oh, we did go for each other's throats, especially the man who wrote that lovely jingle. David Mindel in the south of France.
Are you suggesting that BB doesn't like it?
No, BB loves it. BB absolutely
BB,
adores
I could go off you.
No, she loves it. The worse the better. Speaks volumes about it.
So how can people contact the show, Ross?
I don't know. Try pressing that button just there, James Blake.
0203 290 04411.
Phil at that point
Anyway.
took his headset off.
I've never seen
0203
it flung so quickly. off his head.
0203 290 4411 is the telephone number here at Men's Radio Station for those of us whose first language isn't Twit. You are most welcome to get in contact.
So rude.
And we would love to hear from you. Well, I'm so sorry if I don't live in the 80s.
I like the retro feel of it.
Thank God for that.
It was
Noah would be proud.
This is a constant bone of contention here. I asked David Mindel, who's a very major award-winning songwriter, huge history of hits and everything, and he came up and did the jingle, and then the jingle was produced partly in France and partly in the north of England by a duo called Steve and Jax being a lady, and they're charming as well, and they did it, and Phil hates it. Hates it. One day I'm going to bring in David Mindel and go, hey, here's David Mindel.
Ding,
I
ding,
will
ding, fight.
happily have a chat with him. Happily. Because one thing I can't knock is his creativity.
Yeah,
and I'm not knocking his work.
He's highly creative.
I'm not knocking his work at all. What I am knocking is that I just don't believe that it's necessary to sing a jingle anymore, personally.
Do you not? Is
No.
that your view? Okay,
Do you want to build a snowman? That's what I got
dear,
from that.
dear. Of course, well, actually, that's out today, isn't it? Frozen 2.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, what?
I didn't even know.
No, this is Men's Radio Station. I will not discuss freaking Frozen. Please. A film I've never seen, but I'm sure it's marvellous.
It's ghastly.
I would love to discuss, because I actually don't know. What is mindfulness? I was very interested
I'll
in
tell you
this
exactly
last
what it is.
person.
All right, let me... how the hell we go into these strange little canyons and detours? I don't know, the way our mind works. So...
Can I tell you that actually I think that's what makes Men's Radio Station great, is that we do that. Makes it more
it's
interesting.
unstructured. It's unstructured. Somebody very important said, it seemed a little chaotic when I was in the studio. I said, that's the way that we like it. We like it unstructured. And you have to work hard to deconstruct stuff. But that's the fact. I'm not just saying it. You do have to work to deconstruct.
Well, there's
it.
an argument to have that it makes it more interesting, because if you're just talking about one thing and focusing on that one thing without any interruption, then that can also have the reverse effect.
It also becomes formulaic, which I can't bear. Once stuff becomes formulaic, it's boring as hell. Right, mindfulness. Many, many years ago, I will answer this question correct as well as I can. I was advised by somebody I knew had a very powerful job, and I said, what's going on? And they said, why don't you try transcendental meditation? I said, forget it. What is
Sorry,
this?
say that again?
Oh, my goodness me.
The
That's all right. That was my daughter. Bless her. I don't think I'll take the call now. That would be, even by my standards, sloppy. I said, transcendental meditation. I said, look, forget it. I don't think all this mumbo jump. She said, try it. All the people in our office, and I'm going back a long time. This is about 25 years ago at least. You should do it. It could be more, about 30 years ago. And this was an American woman, etc., and well placed. So I thought, well, she's not an idiot. This is a highly... This must be... So I said, I'll go along to the course. But if I see one hint of robe or sandal, I'm out. And the guy, I went along for a week's course. It was absolutely amazing.
Sandals?
No sandals, 3-piece suits, as a matter of fact, so I felt right at home. 3-piece pinstripe suits. And it made a lot of sense. There was no mumbo-jumbo about it. There was nothing just hippy-dippy garbage, as I always call it. It made a lot of scientific sense. And then the day came that I was dreading, because you'll be given your secret mantra word, which I still have to this day, 25, 35, probably 30 years on.
Do you say it and then...
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Getting there. And you'd be given that word, and I had to bring in, the part I didn't, I had to bring in some fruit, and some flowers. So, fruit and flowers, not a big investment, right? So I bring in the fruit and flowers, and I know this is going to be just me and the teacher. And I'm a terrible giggler. And the worse the situation is, like a funeral or something awful, my nerves kick in and I start to giggle. I can't help it. It's just how I am. And I'm thinking, this is awful. This is going to be in a small room. It's going to be me and him. He's going to want to put me into a transcendental state, and I'm just going to burst out laughing. I'm going to ruin a week of work, my investment of time and money, and not to mention the fruit and the flowers. Well remembered. Anyway, I sat there. He gave me my mantra word, and I started to do it. I'm thinking, this is crap. This is crap. I was gone. I was
But
out
you say gone.
cold.
What
I
does that
was
mean?
gone. The time went. I didn't know where I was. I'd gone completely into it, and
So
then
you
they
had gone
said,
into a transcendental.
it was
meditative
fantastic.
state.
It was amazing, and so I learnt the technique, and then they said, look, if you do it, especially if you're in a car, say you're parked and everything, don't, it's only 20 minutes, don't try and drive. I thought, well, that's crap. I'll wake up. I bumped twice. I did it in a car park, bumped straight into other cars straight away, because I thought I still wasn't out of the state. And when I used to do,
But what is that state though?
It's bliss.
It's exactly, Phil, exactly what they describe it. It is bliss. And I don't mean you're going, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. I can't describe it. Yeah, well, I've got the album coming out soon. Russ sings the very best of Chas and Dave.
So what did it do for your mental welfare then? Does it
what
just
it
clear your
did
mind?
was
Does
it clears your mind. I don't do it now unless I'm in real... But I tell you when I do it, if I've got really stressful things, I'm a doctor, I've got to go through a procedure or something, I try and put myself into that place because it takes you away from it. It relaxes you. It's the equivalent of having lots of deep sleep.
Now, how is that meditative word decided? Is it just everyone has their own unique,
absolutely
or was it...
no idea. It's really just a sound. This one happens to be a word, but it could just be a sound.
You must tell me what yours is. If you talk too much, I'll
absolutely
put it to good use.
Oh, what, you think you can just...
Yeah, I'll just...
No, I'm not being hypnotised, you fool.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
No,
isn't
you're
it?
doing it to yourself.
kind of
You're
is
doing it to yourself.
Self-hypnosis, but is there anything wrong with it? It's the same kind of premise.
What it does is, excuse me, slows your heart rate right down. Slows it.
Oh.
And
I need that. I
absolutely.
remember when I had my blood test.
Yeah, and you see, I've done that at the doctors. I've just slowed my heart rate right down. I go, that's very good. Thank you. It relaxes
Was
you.
that surely before you heard clear?
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock in the back of the ambulance,
Hey.
to be honest with you, with my Harley Davidson just lying on its side. But, well, that's so funny. What I love, James
What, a
asked
time delay or something?
James asked a really nice question. I'm trying to answer what is mindfulness. So really, what they used to call transcendental meditation is kind of, they've dusted it down for 2020, which it will be, and they now call it mindfulness. Now, there's a load of hoo-ha surrounding it. It is not life-changing. It helps. It is not life-changing. It's not a religion. It won't solve all your problems. And, the trouble is with all of these things, they big it up so much because it becomes an industry. That's the problem.
What will it do? If it won't solve this, if it won't solve that...
Well,
what will
it's
it
not
do?
going to solve everything. It won't make everything go away, but it puts you into a better mental state to deal with it, I think.
A more focused state? A more relaxed
focused,
state?
more relaxed, gets your heart rate down, gets your breathing better, and it just kind of clears your mind, and it is reviving in as much as if you're... I mean, I remember one example. I was doing some television, gosh, and it was an incredibly hard day. It was going on and on and on, and there was take after take after take, and in one of the breaks I went off and did some TM, some transcendental, and they came back and they
You
said...
just decided you couldn't take it anymore.
No, that's not even a gag. What is that? That's just words. Phil, that's not even
Clever. I'll give you
it's
half
not
a
clever.
point.
It's not
I'll
even.
give you
It's
half
not
a
even a
point.
structured gag. And I came back, and the cameraman guy said, "You look like a different." It's amazing. It can kind of change your face a little bit, make you look younger.
What would you say to the cynics out there? Because there are so many...
There'd be loads of cynics.
No, but
absolutely.
like you
I'm a cynic.
said
I'm
right
very,
at the start of it...
I'm very cynical.
Yeah, right at the start of it, you said whatever, but don't necessarily believe in it, and then you suddenly
didn't
found
believe in it at
yourself
all.
in this meditative state.
Yeah.
So how would you explain that? Because there's been moments on this very show where I've been completely shocked into believing something that I thought was a load of bunkum, but actually turned out to be quite genuine.
Yeah, I know. Well, the two igniters for me were one, that the person who recommended it was highly, highly intelligent, had a hugely important job, and I'll tell you in the break, I can't say what it was. And so I thought, well, they're not stupid, they wouldn't waste their time with something like that, and their colleagues were doing it as well. And secondly, despite myself, despite me thinking this is bunk and probably won't work, I was out like a light. And he hadn't done anything to me, I'd done it to myself.
He had just told you kind of what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's no, but what I liked about it, it was the week of it was not sitting around, burning incense and all the rest of it. The week of it was explaining the scientific and medical aspects of what TM does. There was no bunkum. There was nothing airy-fairy about it.
Can you remember the science of it?
Yeah, I mean, the science is that you're going into a cycle of breathing in, breathing out. So you're controlling your breathing and you're changing your heart rate. It lowers it. And the other thing you're doing is your thought patterns. You're trying to clear your mind. In our case, three of us, it doesn't take long. There's not a hell of a lot going on in there. But you're trying to get in this cycle of breathing and just doing your mantra. Well, think of the mantra just as a noise, just simply as a kind of a noise to blot out everything else.
I know the whole kind of idea behind meditation is you're to let the thought come and pass.
Absolutely. You do it. It's a circular motion, and then the thought is going, and you're trying to peel away, like an onion, all the layers of stress, etc. Look, it's not a catch-all answer to the world's problems, but if you find something outside of what Phil was saying in the first half of this hour, outside of drugs and drink, that's going to help you, it's kind of got to be a plus. And as I said, I'm probably the most cynical person on the planet. I didn't think it would work, but I thought it was worth giving a go, and I was astounded that it worked and worked so effectively.
Nice.
It was good. So I think roughly that is the 12-hour answer to your question. What is mindful?
It seems like
hey, look, do you know what? It filled a gap, and we needed to do that. So
thanks for saying that. That's really, really nice.
I think we got two
you're
very good
on
things
fire today
from this first hour. We learned that it's good to vocalise our feelings and maybe mindfulness, give it a try.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like
but
we learned.
Not when you're working, and don't ever do it when you're driving. Even if you think you can, you will have a crash within 20 seconds. I'm Russ Kane with Phil, Dave and James Blake. This is Men's Radio Station. Back in a mo.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental health and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30 p.m. on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
And we certainly did. I'm Russ Kane with Phil Dave and James Blake, about to introduce our first guest. Phil, you were saying, interestingly enough, that there is a Facebook comment.
Yeah, so
is it one we want to hear, or is it get off your rubbish?
Absolutely one we want to hear. So, of course, we were talking about mindfulness just before the break there in the last hour, in the last half hour in particular. And Martin has messaged to say mindfulness can help with mental health massively. It's like taking a distance from yourself. He says, I've been practicing this for the last 5 years. It will slow down your lifestyle so you can get a grasp on everyday life. Breathing is healing. I managed to get out of body. It's beyond anything that the material world can offer. It's what's earthly, in other words, beyond anything that is earthly.
I think that's at the extreme, but that's terrific. I mean, if you can do that.
Do you get a similar feeling when you...
There was once... you will not believe this is me speaking, I know, but there was once where I completely left
the stratosphere.
I don't know where the hell I went. It was extraordinary, an extraordinary sensation.
I had that experience as well.
No, you're going to make something really stupid, aren't you? You're going to make a really, really facile comment about when you had 3 glasses of Pullwin's number 7 and you were... Go on, you've ruined the moment, go on.
I've ruined the moment.
Well, you have ruined the moment.
What chutzpah, honest to God.
Because it was James who is doing so well today.
Yeah, am I low down on the pecking order?
I've got to be honest, there's only the two of you to choose from, and frankly, James is beating you into a cocked hat. I don't even know what that means.
To be perfectly honest with you, that is absolutely no worse off to me than when Adam and Eve were there, and Eve turns to Adam and says, do you love me? And he said, it was only you or the snake. So, frankly, I don't care. But anyway, I was going to say that the first time I ever turned my hand... He doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't exist. Turn my hand to guided meditation, and genuinely, I actually couldn't move when I tried to come to again. That's how so there you go. That was no flippant comment.
But you say you couldn't move. Do you mean that you literally couldn't?
Genuinely, I came to and I couldn't move.
You can't move
because it had actually got to me so deep that I hadn't even realised that how much it had affected me, and I just thought, okay, I want to get up now.
You can't.
Oh my God, I can't get up.
You can't get up.
That would terrify me.
It was terrifying.
But James, it's like, you've ever had a very deep sleep.
Yes.
Imagine. Pretend you ever have. I mean, but when you wake up,
there's that minute.
This is the whole thing. But you've been gone for hours. This is 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, you feel like you've had this extraordinarily deep sleep. And you have to come back to the surface from it. So my experience was you don't just wake up and go, yeah, I'm raring to go. It's like... wow. And then slowly you said, right. We have Best T-Shirt of the Day award.
Oh, that reminds me. Do you know that today is actually International T-Shirt Day?
Get out. Are you
I'm
kidding
not
me?
joking. It is.
In your case.
Every day for you is
every day.
International
But today is
Day.
actually T-Shirt Day.
So our guest, before we introduce him, I want to introduce the T-shirt because I like to get things in the right pecking order. Now, this is... one of our favourite...
Showing it off on Facebook
is
Live
one of our favourite artists, Johnny Cash. I only started to get into Johnny Cash about 3 years ago. Before that, I always thought, yeah, I know. I didn't say I was a genius. I'm being honest here.
James Blake, before any further developments are made, name a Johnny Cash hit.
I'm a massive Johnny Cash fan. Folsom Prison Blues, A Boy
Hey,
Named
look
Sue.
at that.
He loves Johnny Cash.
I've got
Wonderful.
Stripes.
Well done.
Don't take your guns to town. I can go on and on and on. I love... Hello, my name's Johnny Cash.
It's really irritating.
And the film was...
It's really annoying. I don't know who you are and what you've done with the real James, but he really is on form today.
He's
The film, Walk the Line.
Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix. What a film that is. Anyway, so, welcome Paul Aston.
Hi.
Hello, Paul. Now, you are. Hello, Paul. Paul.
Can I just say that's probably the most manly hello we've ever had on the radio station. Well done, sir.
Hi,
Bravo.
how are you? All right. All right. Going anywhere nice for your holidays? You're a filmmaker.
I am.
Which we can kind of tell because you're A, wearing a hat, and B, on top of your hat are yellow sunglasses. Is that like your trademark or what?
Yeah, the hat definitely is. I'll tell you.
Is it? That's cool. I like that. We like that. It's kind of Indiana Jones style hat, and it's very cool because you're rocking that look, and not many people can.
No, indeed.
It's true because some people look ridiculous in hats. Phil Dave looks great in a hat because he always wears hats. Now, you are a sufferer of CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. Never heard of it. I want to know all about it.
Can I say some people also know it as ME, just in case there's any
Oh,
confusion?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same thing.
Ooh, okay, let's deal with that one. Start off with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, before anything else, thank you for coming into the men's.
My
radio
absolute
station.
pleasure.
Thank you for coming in.
Really appreciate it.
Not at all.
And I don't care you're here.
Good. Long as we're clear.
One day, Phil, someone's going to think you're serious and just deck you. And I will laugh so much.
Anyway, so yes, myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME, as it was previously diagnosed as.
What was that? Sorry,
myalgic encephalomyelitis.
I had no idea what the hell it was. For. Yeah, go on.
So obviously it was branded yuppie flu in the 80s. And
why was that? Why were people so down on it?
Well, because it suddenly had an outbreak amongst city workers. And one of the things that they discovered quite quickly early on in the research is that it tends to affect A-type personalities more than it affects Bs. So A-types being go-getters and people that have high-stress jobs and actually love being on the edge. And they began to think it was burnout when it affected city workers. This wasn't the first outbreak, by the way. We've had lots of outbreaks over the past century, but this was for the 80s. And it got labelled yuppie flu, and one of the symptoms is that you lose the ability for your brain to connect with your nerve endings, which results at its worst in being unable to speak and unable to move. And they couldn't figure out how somebody would go from being completely normal to being almost paralyzed and disabled in a way that they couldn't explain. So the only rationale they came up with was there must be a swelling of the brain, encephalomyelitis, causing the myalgia, muscle failure.
Okay.
And that was what it was called for, well, nearly 2 decades. And as the research, little that it was, progressed, they realized that actually there was no swelling of the brain. So they said, well, we need to rename this. And the renaming came in as chronic fatigue syndrome. So you have these.
I've got to interrupt because I'm stunned. How? And I'm not a medical person, as has been abundantly clear since the beginning of January. But how could you not know there wasn't? I don't mean you, but how could the medical profession not know there was no swelling of the brain?
Because to monitor it is incredibly costly. You've got to be watching somebody in an MRI for like 24 hours solid in the hope that they will relapse. Right. So it's not something relatively easy to test. So you would have to know somebody's brain base rate, then measure it again when what ME/CFS sufferers call crashes. So it's a relapse of symptoms. And between those 2 points, it was just people just hadn't done it. So it was only when significant amount of research was placed in. Lost my track of thought. Now, where are we?
So we're talking about you and what happened.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I was... most sufferers start off with an immune-impairing disease in their childhood. Most sufferers suffer with glandular fever. So I had glandular fever when I was 10 years old. But I was first seriously impacted by it when I was in university. So I was running my own business. I just bought my first house. I was 20. How
old were you?
20.
James? Just running my own business, just bought my first house. He was 20 years old. Just making a point.
Just making a point. Okay.
Yeah, move on, Paul. Move on, Paul.
May have not been in London, but hey.
Yeah, true. It was a hell of a lot cheaper in London, actually, at the time. But so this was in Cardiff in South Wales. Thank you for...
Oh, they were glad to... For God's sake, it was Wales. They were happy to see him. People to see the house with 3 sheep.
And I'd just gone to university at Cardiff Business School to read business administration. And in my first year, I had what can only be described as the most painful experience I've ever had in my life. Woke up one morning and I had hypersensitivity, which means if you literally touch my skin, it was like somebody cutting me with 1,000 razors. So brushing a sheet over your flesh or anything like that.
You know why I'm reacting like that? When I had my car crash, they call it, what do they call it? Exquisite. The medical term is exquisite pain or exquisite something. So my ribs were all smacked up as well, apart from everything. I had to learn to walk again. But the ribs, and if you brushed, as you've just demonstrated, the pain was, oh God.
Do you cut or bruise, or is it just a...
No, it's your nerve endings just become hypersensitive.
Yeah.
So by definition, there's no visual.
But it just feels like you're getting cut.
Yeah.
There's no actual bruising or cut.
No. So basically what's happened is your nerves are misinterpreting sensations.
Yeah, they're overreacting to it.
So,
it's very
Paul, see if I'm right. Even, to try and put it in perspective, even the weight of a cotton pajama top, you'd think someone had just punched you. It's
really?
That painful.
It'd be like your skin was on fire.
Yeah, it was. Wow. Yeah. Mine was a horrible physical thing following the car accident, but there we go. So I totally relate to that.
Yeah. So that was when
this just woke up, boom, out of nowhere.
I was incredibly fortunate. I was dating and living with a nurse at the time, so that helped inordinately.
I like to think of that as planning.
In particular, forward planning.
I like that. You know what? I might wake up in agony one day. I wouldn't date a nurse.
And I was ludicrously lucky because I was sent to Heath High University Teaching Hospital. Just so happened that the world's specialist on the condition was there.
Thank God, because they would have. I'm just wondering if you wake up out of the blue, you suddenly think, "What the hell?" And had by pure serendipity, the world expert, would they have been able to diagnose what was happening to you?
Well, number one, chronic fatigue is a diagnosis of omission. So you go through every other diagnosis for those symptoms, and if you can't find any other explanation, then you get
That's the problem. It's kind of the last resort, isn't it? Because I know people who have been diagnosed with CFS, and they've gone through every single test you can possibly think of to rule out everything, because the symptoms are arguably so generic. They're actually too generic to diagnose what it could be, because it could be anything. You have to rule out other.
There are certain traits. There are certain traits to be diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome.
But let's move. I want to get sort of the chronology of this. So you've now been diagnosed at your hospital by a miracle, the experts there.
Yeah. Professor Borisevich, who later went on to be the Vice Chancellor of Cambridge, but he is considered one of the top immunologists in the world, which was, kind of handy. So that was when I first encountered my condition. I was in hospital for 3 months, bedridden for a year.
Oh my God. You were there for 3 months.
Uh-huh.
And up to the day that you woke up with this pain, you were fine.
Well, it's called relatively normal.
Well, seeing the yellow sunglasses, I think we're going to add the word relatively. To be honest.
You picked up on the 3 months, and then you missed out the
I was
bedridden for a year.
I was about to get there.
Unbelievable.
Well, that was a first.
You couldn't move?
I say at its worst, I couldn't move or talk.
Whoa.
So there were weeks on end where I just couldn't verbalize. But yeah. So it totally.
How did? This is a stupid question, but I have to go there. How did it? Because presumably in your head, you're Paul and everything's fine. And are you thinking I can't talk or not? Is that only in the films?
It starts off with an incredible frustration because you can't correlate why you can think something and then suddenly not verbalize it. So it takes a little while to adjust what's actually going on. And then once you figure it and you kind of go in, okay, things are working up here. I'm telling my arm to move, but it isn't. I'm telling my voice to speak, but it won't.
This is horrible.
Yeah, it becomes terrifying in that first moment. But as soon as it comes back, as soon as you are able to move and you are able to speak again, in your head, you've suddenly gone, okay, this is temporary. Whenever this happens. But
you were in bed for a year.
Yeah.
But you say, was it like completely bedridden, couldn't move at all?
I was completely bedridden, but I was able to move, small distances. Sometimes I could get my feet on the floor.
Like it would come and go, sort of.
Yeah. But I during that period, during the first crash, I wasn't able to get any more than sort of 3 steps without assistance.
And is that just because you don't know what's happening? You're just trying
no,
to understand
partly because as I say, your synapses aren't firing, so your muscles aren't reacting. So you want to move, and you're saying to your legs, move, and they just go, yeah, not so much.
It kind of begs the question, though, and not wishing to sort of get too personal or too graphic, but how did you deal with yourself? You know, we all have a particular instance where we have to sort of pay a certain visit during the day.
Indeed.
Something as simple as that must have been a mission.
Constipation became a constant problem. Urine less so, because you can always drag a bottle from somewhere, being male, thankfully.
Wow.
But yes, no, it's commodes became I had to be brought in and the like. And again, one of the pieces of luck of living with a nurse who was absolutely wonderful.
Goodness me.
So she just on a human note, she's stuck by you?
She and I are still best friends, even though we split up 20 years ago now.
Wow, good for you. Good for you. And then bit by bit, your feeling and everything started to come back, or
yeah, I mean, not even bit by bit. It was suddenly one day one day I wasn't being able to talk. The next day I was talking completely fine. You just kind of woke up one day. It was like this. I don't know if you've ever seen Robert De Niro's Awakenings.
Yeah,
it was just like that.
Jeez.
So you're almost in a catatonic state, and the next thing you're kind of morning. Obviously, I'd had muscle fatigue by that point because I hadn't.
So if you hadn't moved anything, I mean, presumably you had a lot of wastage in your legs and arms.
Yeah, I mean, again, very lucky because I used to do athletics as a kid, so actually recovery, getting back to a fairly decent state, didn't take a huge amount of time. It was about 6 months, 9 months when I was back to roughly what I was before.
So how did you turn this horrible and horrifying life event into strength, or did you?
Yeah, I mean, well, I suppose my life started with me being abandoned in a tent when I was about 3 weeks old. So it's kind of like,
we're not letting that one slide. Stop. Right.
We don't have this kind of time.
We really do. No, it's not Radio 4. This is men's radio station where men really speak. And if our guest has taken the time and trouble to come in and then drops the bomb, I was abandoned in the tent when I was 3 weeks old. What do you mean? What?
Okay, so my mother, who was 19, going on 12, as I always like to say, was living with her then boyfriend, and they were living in his mother's house in Caerphilly. So they're both white, and I arrive, and I'm not quite white. And she was like,
tell.
Really? Clearly not enough sun
Not
today.
even I would have said that.
I don't even think I would have done that. That's saying something.
I mean, wow. James, you're on your own with that one. Anyway, go on.
Swim.
Go. So you turned up and they went, what? Hang on a mo.
Yeah, well, as it turned out, I was a throwback on my father's side, about 5 generations back from the West Indies, but at the time, nobody knew that. So my mother was like, no, I didn't sleep with anybody else. My father clearly wasn't sure because he signed my birth certificate. His mother, though, was like, yeah, no, out. So threw her out. And so she was homeless, and she went to social services and went, hey, I can't cope. And social services went, doesn't matter how bad it gets, the child's always better off with its real mother, so we're going to send you to this campsite.
Campsite?
Yeah, it's 1968.
But it's not 1860. A campsite? What the hell?
It was
You've absolutely shattered. I didn't know such a thing existed.
You say that, but that was around about the time when the mother and baby homes would have been shut down around then, wouldn't it? And so, of course, where else do you go? Because there wasn't this sort of this social services system that we have now in place, was there?
No,
so
not
it was kind of the interim period.
So it was an old abandoned airport, which they just turned into.
I didn't know that.
Sounds attractive.
Which they turned into this sort of campsite for unwed or homeless single mothers, and that's where I was. And she went to her friends or people she knew there, and sort of said, "What do I do?" And they, well, if you abandon him, they'll have no other choice but to take him into care. And unfortunately, my biological mum not being spectacularly bright, didn't tell anybody. So they found me about 7 hours later on death's door.
Oh my God! So. Have you? I'm going to put my hand on the hornet's nest. Have you seen her ever since?
Yeah, I met her when I was 16, and it was funny because she approached me when I was 10, and I never forget my social worker going, "Do you want to see her?" And I could see my mother, my foster mother, who's since birth basically. So
she's really think of it to your mum.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I refer to my family as my foster mum, so she. What was I saying? I've lost my track.
No. You were saying that you were 10 and social.
Oh, yeah. So they approached me and they asked me to make a drawing of my mother. So I drew her with a scar on her left cheek and her foot in a plaster cast. And they were like, why does she have a plaster cast? You asked me what I thought she looked like. That's what I think she looks like.
A scar on her cheek and a broken foot.
So when I was 16, I'd been brought up...
How random is that?
With the absolute knowledge that I was a white middle-class boy. I was going to go to Oxbridge. I was expected to do wonderful things. And I suddenly got to school and I was like, I'm done with this. I was like, I can't deal with...
I knew we had something in common. I'm just saying. I could feel it.
Hats and glasses.
Yeah, and at that point, it was kind of going, that was too easy a decision. So I was curious. I thought, I wonder if there's something genetic about why that was so easy to do. And so I decided to go track her down. And when I tracked her down, lo and behold, she'd broken both her legs and she had a scar on her left cheek. And
excuse me. Wow, that
please,
is
not in stereo.
That is Paul Atherton. That is freaky.
Well, what was even more freaky is, you got to remember, I'm 16. I've left home, got my first flat, my first residency, challenged the state in court to get out of care because they wanted to keep me in because I was still a ward of the state because I was a foster child, not adopted. And I was like, yeah, I'm not having that. I'm going. I was, oh no, you've got to stay. And I'm like, try me. It's like, let's face off in court. So so all of that was going on, and then I was like, okay, I thought it was going to take me years to track it down. Obviously, all the records were in Somerset House in those days.
Yes.
So I was living in Wales, so I thought I'd traipse down to Somerset House and do all of this searching. So I quit school to do this. And then I found her in 3 days because she was on probation. And the reason she was on probation is she decided to try cat burglary badly. So she was.
Yeah, you weren't wrong with your description of not the brightest bulb in the lighting department.
No, absolutely. And I say it with real affection. I've got no qualms, and I thought she did absolutely the right thing. And
do you?
Oh yeah. I was very blessed in what.
So
she did.
you track her down, and
yeah. So she's what had happened is she broke into this house, made so much noise. The police arrived. She was still in the house when they got into the house, so she bolted out the back door, and it was about a 3-foot wall at the back. Vaults it, only to discover it's got a 20-foot drop the other side.
Whoa!
Lands, breaks both her legs.
Oh my God.
Has her legs in plaster cast, doesn't like the plaster cast, cuts it off, induces thrombosis, and paralyzes herself from the waist down. She's living with one guy, getting married to another guy, and the only way she can see the other guy is if the guy she is living with wheels her there.
I cannot even start to wrap my head around this particular nightmare.
If you don't mind me saying, you seem remarkably sane, all things considered.
Yeah.
I'm being deadly serious, because I think that a lesser person would be dreadfully affected by
and
that.
back to the luck, right? So when I was abandoned, Tony Austin, who still remains my friend today, and I was his first ever case, he named his son after me, took me home. So instead of just bunging me into a care system, he actually took me home and waited till he found the perfect family to place me with. He'd be arrested for doing that today, of course. But yeah, so I landed with a foster family, and I couldn't have been in a better situation in a lot of ways.
So they obviously gave you the love and stability.
Oh, my mum did. Yeah.
But and is your birth mother still alive?
I have no idea. I met her when I was 16. I was the first of her children. She'd had 7 by the time I met her.
I'm sorry, 7?
Yeah. All of them farmed out. Not one of them she'd kept. And they were twins in Ireland, and there was someone else in Birmingham. But she brought her adopted mother with her, so theoretically my grandmother, I suppose, and one of my stepsisters. And when I was there, I was kind of talking to my stepsister, and I did consider staying in touch with her, but because there was so much going on in my life at the time, I thought, you know what, I can't take someone else's burden on right now. I just can't.
Can I just double check? Sorry, was a stepsister in the fact that she'd gone on to marry someone else, and they had
no,
half
sister, yeah,
half-sisters?
yes, absolutely.
So you have met some of your siblings or half siblings,
yeah.
Then? And are you in contact with?
No, I as I say, I just didn't. I didn't feel that was a burden at the time that I could take on. I was just starting to sort of get a grip on my own life, having moved out and suddenly having all the responsibility of a tenancy and a job and everything else that was going on. It just felt a bit much, so I didn't.
I'm sitting here in sort of stunned silence because your
Have you written a book? You really need to, if you haven't.
It is crying out for a film, but it would be so depressing. Wow, she's a car crash.
Oh yeah, I mean, how much better a life I had by her giving me up.
Oh no, I get that.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It would have been.
But it's not like she didn't ask for help, and I think that's been telling in my life as well. It's not like you don't ask for help; it's never there.
So now you were saying that there was too much going on. So what was going on? I feel like you've escaped in an escape pod somehow from this complete nightmare that it was.
Well, my whole life is kind of it's been an adventure. I mean, my foster father was a racist, and when I was 12, 11.
Hang on, whoa! How many bombs?
Think this couldn't go any.
I'm thinking this could be any more shit. And then there's a whole new realm of hell that you unlit. So, so there you are, as apparently a throwback 5 generations to the West Indies.
Yeah.
I don't understand genetics, but there we go. And then suddenly your foster father just happens to be a racist.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because my mum had Richard, who's my eldest brother, Andrew, who's my elder brother. But Andrew had a twin, and that twin died at birth. Mm-hmm. So my mum decided that she should be a 3-child family, and then not wanting to go through another pregnancy, she decided to temporary foster care. I was number 24.
Wow.
So she'd had children for a few days or a few weeks. The longest I think anyone had been there was 3 months. And when I arrived, she goes, "No, I want to keep this one." My father... do you all know Only Fools and Horses?
Of course,
yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, the uncle, during the war.
Oh, Uncle Albert.
Yeah, that was my dad. He goes, during the war, I'm like, "Dad, you were based in Trinidad." I saw no action whatsoever. It was just 3 years of holiday.
He must have had the best war out of anyone we've ever heard of.
Might I suggest as well that if he was a racist, forgive me, I don't know if your father's still with us, but probably Trinidad wasn't the best place for him.
Well, my gut is that he probably caught some venereal disease off one of the women on the island. And it sort of marred his experience of people of colour.
Gave him a jaundiced view of the world.
Yeah, I was 12 years old. I was in the car. I'd gone to see him in Cornwall because, we'd become very, we were very close. We were much closer than any other member of the family because most of my family really didn't like him. And he turned to me and goes, "Son, I didn't want a fuzzy wuzzy in the house, but you've turned out really well."
Well, you've got to take compliments where you can find them.
Gonna say, I mean, that is some backhanded in
you
there
have
somewhere.
Absolutely killed our producer, by the way, who is just doubled up under the desk.
And he's curiously enough gone a brighter shade of red.
We are
as well.
I've never heard such preposterousness in my life.
It's fabulous. Welcome to our world, ladies and gentlemen.
I just need to say, I'd watch the series. I'm just saying.
It's so bad, it's beyond belief. We are talking to Paul Atherton on Men's Radio Station. God only knows what else he's going to reveal, and we'll find out in just a moment.
After the break.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental health and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
There are some interviews that you don't remember very clearly, and other interviews that... Could you make a bit more noise for your mince pie, for God's sake? And other interviews that, that I had to leave the studio to get my head together, because this is just the most extraordinary tale of one horror after another. And it's just... But it's told with such disarmingly charming style, but it's just... James, if you could stop playing Tetris for a minute. Phil Dave is trying to... James!
Hello.
Jeez. You see what my life's like? Do you see what it's like?
It's all professional, isn't it?
I just broke my new high score, if anyone was wondering.
The worry is that we are actually professionals. Are you
No, it's a joke.
Paul,
Man.
Our special guest is filmmaker Paul Atherton, who's going through his childhood. If you touch those mince pies one more, I'm going to break your hand. And I mean it in a loving, caring way. And every time you think, well, Paul's life couldn't have got any worse, and then the next thing happens, and it's like, oh my God. Right. So now you're in a flat.
Can I just ask, sorry, in all seriousness, it's really curious you say before you think it couldn't get any worse. Do you recognise it as worse, or do you just take it as your life?
It's just my life, yeah.
No, that's the point. But to what? You've been seeing our expressions, and it's like, and of course in the
I'm jumping huge chunks.
But well, we've only got a day. So, and in the green room, there's people listening as well to the show. And I walked in just to pick up my tea, and they went, "What the?" Well, I won't do the rest of the sentence, but So right now you're on your own. You got your flat, your and everything like that. All right, now what?
Okay, so I'm working in Howell's department store.
Howell's?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Harrods of Wales.
All right, okay, fair.
Which, whilst I was there, actually...
Sounded so good until
Fayed actually came up and, declared his ownership whilst I was there, which is kind of fun. But yeah, so I was doing a youth training scheme there, and things were reasonably okay. And then I started getting agoraphobia, which was fun.
Agoraphobia is
fear of being
fear outside. So basically, you become more and more recluse to the point that you can't
leave the house.
You can't leave the house. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
God.
Now, obviously, this was sort of like a culmination of going through every stressful
Is your middle
thing.
name Lucky? I'm guessing. Yeah, going out on a limb.
So yeah, I mean, this was a culmination of all the most stressful things you could possibly do, right? So yeah,
agoraphobia,
meeting my mother, your biological mother, for the first time, ending a relationship with my own parents, leaving home, leaving children's homes, fighting the state,
just doing it, all at once.
How old are you at this point?
16.
You get agoraphobia at 16.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
So. Yeah, I mean that eventually became a problem, and I couldn't leave. But it was really funny because I was
no. You have this fabulous habit of saying something huge, which is in itself a program, and then you just brush it aside. Like, by the way, Phil Dave's just had another mince pie. Like it's like of no consequence. Well, so you couldn't leave home.
Yeah, but the anecdote I wanted to say was that I'd gone to the library. because I noticed these symptoms quite early on, and I was kind of going...
What were the symptoms?
Disengagement. So it feels like you are looking through...
Witnessing.
Yeah, exactly.
Witnessing. Yep.
And that was the start. And then I was getting panic attacks quite regularly. And eventually I was like, I've got to figure out what's going on here. So I went to the local library and whatever fatalist viewpoint you happen to have, there was a book sticking out. And it said Claire Wick's Agoraphobia. And it was just calling me. And I picked this book up and read the first page, and the first page was all my symptoms. And I went, fantastic! I've got a label for this. I can do something with a label.
How did the panic attacks manifest?
Heart attack, basically. I thought I was having a heart. In fact, I did have a heart attack.
No. Seriously, because Phil's question is a really good one. So you're walking along, you're sitting there. What actually are the symptoms?
Okay,
Because there'll be people. The reason I'm asking, the reason why I'm drilling is because people listening now, they're going, I think I may have had a panic attack or something, or someone I know. So
the first time it happened, it was heart palpitations, not sufficient enough to give you sort of piercing pain in your arms, but sufficient enough to give you pain in your arms. And then you go into a spiral of, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. Then you start hyperventilating, so your breath becomes very short.
Sorry, that was me demonstrating.
Was that you demonstrating?
I just say that was uncanny. For a moment there, I was genuinely concerned for your health.
I could tell the way everyone looked at me.
I don't give a monkeys, to be honest with you.
This pain, though, that you speak of in the arm, though, how would you describe that? Because a lot of the time people describe when they think they're having a heart attack as shooting pain almost.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the ways that I dealt with it to sort of kind of calm myself down, is you kind of go, if you're having a heart attack, you'd have collapsed by now, and it isn't searing pain.
You start like reasoning almost.
Again, these are things that I learned
to do.
Yeah,
but it's very. I was going to say it's very hard because speaking as someone who's, I don't often talk about it, but speaking as someone who has had panic attacks in the past, it's not that easy to start talking yourself into it.
No.
How do you think we feel when we know we've got to meet you?
Well, I can only say I think I've got a rough idea, having had panic attacks in the past myself. But it is true that you can't really see the... I hate the expression because they're stupid. You can't see the wood from the trees, can you?
No.
I don't think that's a stupid expression.
I hate it. It's ridiculous.
So you can't get a focus on what
much better.
You start focusing on the symptoms, and in the process of doing that, you go further and further down the spiral. And, at one point, I remember the first time it happened, I was literally walking up someone's driveway to knock on the door to ask them to ring me an ambulance. And I was about halfway up there going, well, hang on a minute. Well, I wouldn't have made it to the door. And then you kind of going, well, okay, this isn't what I think it is, but I have no idea what it is. So it was a fair while before I actually got diagnosed. But this library book by Claire Wicks, this agoraphobia book, I went to take it out to the library. And I filled in the forms, and the librarian went, "You're not 18." I was like, "No." And she goes, "Well, you can't take a library book out if you're not 18." I'm like, I live on my own. I've got
pay my own
flat.
bills, yeah.
I could be shooting people legally about now in the army, and I can have children. So I quite understand why I can't get a library book. Anyway, we had this massive debate, and I said, "Okay, look, I'm a ward of the state by definition. Yeah. You work for the state, you sign it." But she didn't agree, so I nicked it.
Wow.
I was thinking, I think the Woody Allen version of this was but the library book on agoraphobia couldn't leave the library.
That would have been funny, but not true.
So you just walked out. You're a very ballsy guy, if I may say so.
Well, it's a ridiculous thing, isn't it? I mean, I'm stood there in front of this woman telling me, and I've got to be 18 to borrow a library
rules
book.
are rules.
If I may just say, that seems to be out there. For me, my comparison to that for this week is that I'm not joking. Sorry, this is nothing necessarily to do with agoraphobia per se, but I tried to get a quotation for a new computer through a particular company that will remain nameless this week. And I am not joking. I went emailing back and forth with the exact spec of this machine that I wanted, only to be told they would only give me a bottom line price if the order was confirmed. So I said to them, I tried to explain that is not the way one does shopping. You don't go into a shop and you don't go up and pay for something, and at the point of handing your credit card over and say, I don't care how much it is, here's the card, take it, and then you buy it. They just didn't respond to me. So they didn't quite get their heads around that. But that is exactly the same kind of level of stupidity that I would look at, is that because you're under 18, you can't take a library book out. What stuff and nonsense. But anyway, There you go.
Yeah, so I felt quite appropriate to steal it. But
So you read the book and it helped.
I can't. And this has been true of all my conditions. I think it's that moment when you've got something that you can relate to and go, this is something someone knows about. I can now start addressing it. Is just epoch changing. It's why, you know, it was the same with when I was first diagnosed with ME. It was that moment when this isn't something nobody's got a clue about. This is something that not many people have a clue about, but at least it's got a label and I can now define it and talk to other people about it.
And it's the not knowing that's a killer.
Yeah, unquestionably.
Because it's just as soon as one does know, and it's the same with so many things, isn't it? They say as soon as you know what you're up against, you can almost deal with it.
Because you can focus on it. You know that there are ways that it can be alleviated and all sorts of things. So
and chances are that either, if not cured, treatments are already in place. You're not necessarily the first person in history to ever have something.
By the way, a huge shout out to Australia, where the wonderful Leo Sayer is watching the show right now. Leo,
hey Leo,
love you. Thank you for all your support, and you remain one of the great icons of pop. So bless you, and have a lovely time in Australia.
And when I need you, no, don't go there.
You total legend. Big shout out to Hilary O'Neill, who's watching as well with comedy appeal. It's Hilary. It's a little standing joke, and High Hills. And,
I guess you had to be there.
It's a standing joke for the last 30 years. Right. So what's the next disaster? I'm not even going to say what happened next. I'm going to say what was the next crisis. Then I woke up and I found I was Swamp Thing.
Okay, no, let's spin can we put this on the head slightly, and can we say, at what point did you say that something happened to you, something major happened to you in your life where you actually thought, yes, finally something good? Wow, he's had to think about it. That's worrying.
Well, no, because there are lots. I mean, you know, first meeting Lisa when I was 10 years old would be up there. My mum, unequivocally, you know, since I was 3 months old. I mean, she's been this pillar and support and strength all through my life, and sadly she died 5 years ago now. But my dad, even with his sort of arcane opinions about homosexuality and black people, I still adore. He died in 2011, but they were. Without them, I wouldn't be who I was. So it's the same with my brothers. You know, my mother brought me up in a world, and it only really came home to me when I moved to London, that I grew up in a world where my mum said, there are racists out there. They won't be very bright. They're not very important. Don't pay any attention to them. And I've never had that issue where I discovered when I moved to London, a lot of people with black skin have these massive chips, and they've been brought up being told you can't do anything because you're black, and the white racist regime will put you down and this kind of thing. And of course I never had any of that, so I didn't expect it, and by definition I didn't behave like that, so I got a job in every interview.
It's interesting. If I could I'm going to put this delicately, although with you, is there any need, to be honest with you? What a guy you are. To the tulips, precisely so. Because, you know, like, there's... If we had the Dulux shade card, right, you know, the paint colour thing, you're not... You look like you've just been on holiday for a week.
You know, I mean, it's really funny because
which the point I'm making is that for you to have for your stepfather, for your foster father to say that, I'm not even repeating it, I just can't make the words form in my... No, stop it. Don't. It's bad enough hearing it once, someone hear it again. I have a question for you. I know, then I'm coming back just to you, but I have a question for you. All right? Okay, because you have this fantastic background.
It's obviously a big question because he had to precursor you. To warn you it was coming.
There's a question. It is a coming.
Phil Dave is the subtext to my life. You know, when you put on subtitles on the show, that's Phil. Phil just...
I'm the audio description.
That's very good. I love that. James, our producer, is having the best day today. He's stuffing his face with Christmas pies and enjoying himself. I'm having nothing.
Producer James and starts shaking his hand in intrigue.
Audio description at his best. Right.
Finally gets his breath thanks to his guest.
Stop it now. Right. We were having a discussion last week, me, Phil and James.
Tries to look serious.
Stop it, I'm going to spit my mince pie out.
Okay, I'll stop now. do apologise.
All right, the thing about it is, right, we were having a discussion about, do you remember Robinson's Jam? Robinson's Jam.
Gollywog.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Can we just be, no, serious.
Seriously,
Don't do
wait,
that.
in all seriousness, apologies to anyone who
please
hears that
don't
and
use
is
that
offended.
word.
Sorry.
Please don't. So what I was going to say was the little symbol was their emblem and their symbol. And James, who is 24, and therefore every day for him is a school day. And I was describing, he went, what? And I kind of described what the symbol was and the fact that they'd made these gorgeous little enamel badges, which had
hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Right. Now, James was...
Terrible.
Now, here's my... Hang on, Paul Atherton, just a moment, just a minute. Right. So James was in shock and thought this was like the most horrendous... Might as well wear a swastika on my armband. But you, of interesting heritage, I don't know whether... All right, whatever. You didn't find it horrible. Did you? I know it's a stupid thing, but it was just because it caused quite a lot of heated debate in the studio.
I think one of the...
Did you find it offensive?
Of course not, because to find it offensive, it would have to have had offensive intent. It did not. And this is
But James totally disagreed with that.
Well,
He
yeah, but
wouldn't
he's
take my
white.
point.
It's an offensive image.
He wouldn't take my point.
He's white. And
Is he?
Oh, wow.
I mean, he goes bright red. But we don't look too much into that.
No, but
It's usually when he's done something wrong.
One of the problems that we have in society at the moment is that we've lost the argument about intent. Was there an intent to offend? Clearly not. These things were just based on a childhood toy that was on play school as a kid growing up that Floella Benjamin played with.
Yeah.
Because there's no intent doesn't mean it can't still be offensive.
No, but hang on a
You
second.
can-
But I
you
tell you
can
what.
find
I
offence.
tell you what, though.
James,
You can
James,
flip this on
James,
its head.
the quest-
Wow.
the
One at a
James-
time, please. One at a time.
All right, no. So why not flip it on its head? How many years have people been crying out saying that the Barbie doll is offensive in the sense that it only comes as a white doll?
Which he doesn't know, but yeah.
It doesn't now.
Yeah.
I know that. I recognise it doesn't now. But the point was that people were crying out for years saying that. So technically speaking, the Golly doll could have been anything other than just potentially an alternative, and yet people were offended by it. I've never understood personally what the offence is, but then again, I'm not the one who's got a right to be offended.
But this is it. The people who are making all the screaming noise invariably aren't the people that should be
You
making all
see,
the
that
screaming
was
noise.
my
Have
point.
you seen it?
Well, of course we've seen it. We grew up with it. We grew up with it.
My
James.
mother actually
Now, you
still
have
possesses
to remember
one.
that we're talking about Robinson's Jam and a little emblem
Little symbol,
that had no correlation to what it had stemmed from.
I found it. I mean, James, here's the thing. I found it beautifully drawn. The badges were a
They were
joy.
stunning.
And I found
They
it
were happy,
really
they were
happy and a joyous
everything.
thing.
Then what about,
I never, James, I'm being absolutely straight with you here. I never made any connection or correlation to anything
Nobody
other
did.
that I just enjoyed it as a piece of art.
Yeah.
It had no other meaning to me
anybody.
whatsoever.
It's only in the last 10, 15 years that this has been, let's say 20 years, that this has been a
And
thing.
if anyone could be offended, and you see, the thing is, this whole "I'm offended" stuff.
Yeah, who cares?
Here's Paul, right? Here's Paul, and if anyone has the right to be offended, Paul could say Paul has the right. We're kind of bystanders on this, surely.
It's not appropriate. I'm sorry.
No, hang on a sec. Do you mind if I ask then, are you offended by voodoo dolls?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't like them. I don't
No.
know
But are you offended by a voodoo doll?
In what way?
As in, like,
the
you
same
look
way
at it
you're
and you're
offended?
hideously offended by it.
I've done.
Hideously offended. Right?
I
Same sensation.
I want to say no because
Okay, but
I haven't
the same
really
sensation.
seen voodoo
Hang on,
dolls.
the same sensation you've got now by looking at images depicting a Golly doll. Is there anything about a voodoo doll that fills you with that same sense?
Let me get a picture of a voodoo doll. But the thing with the Golly doll is that you know,
Well, hang on a minute. If you're plucking up pictures on Google, that is not a good place to start.
no.
Unless you're looking at Robertson's
Are you? Anyway, look.
emblem.
Okay.
No, but the reason. Okay, so the
This
reason
is
why I
the
asked
reason,
this.
yes.
Can I just say the reason why I asked this is because voodoo dolls have one purpose in mind, and that is to cause harm and to potentially offend those who they are supposedly sticking pins into.
Yeah.
But yet, if you've got no issue with that, or you are not offended by that, that makes absolutely no sense compared to being offended by a Golly doll, which never had any malice and still doesn't, even now,
It's
have
just
any
the
malice.
imagery of it, though. It's very blatantly racist, if you ask me.
Well,
Why is
it's
it
not.
blatantly racist?
It isn't. It's
It's
because
not
you've been
racist at all.
told that.
It's, you know,
but it's not.
It just, whenever I look at it, it reminds me of those old movies where you see those guys in blackface, and I'm like, this is so bad, and it's just the same.
But then again, that's an association you have.
Yeah. Because blackface doesn't necessarily mean what it means. I mean, blackface is used in all kinds of different religions and types, and has nothing to do with blackface mockery of black people.
It's an interesting point. I mean, you know, I said to James, and James nearly died sitting in the producer's chair, that the top BBC show used to be the prime time Saturday black and white minstrel show, prime time on a Saturday night.
Love Thy Neighbour.
And he thought I was
okay. That was bad even.
Let me just. All right. There was a show called, I want to get back to you, but it's interesting because you're very open about it. And if we can have these discussions without everyone screaming and shouting and, you know, going to their corners and going, I'm offended, it's a fantastic thing where men really talk. So this is what we're doing. So there was a show written by Vince Powell, who was one of the top comedy writers of his day, called Love Thy Neighbour. Now, the premise of the show, for those who don't know it, was that a black couple and move in next door to a white couple. And the wife is both the wives get on great. There's absolutely, they don't see anything, they don't see colour. And the white guy is an idiot and a bigot and all the rest of it. And I had lunch with Vince Powell, who wrote this show, just the two of us, because I wanted to meet him, and I admired him as a writer. I'd written Coronation Street and many other top comedy shows. And I said over lunch, you know, your show now is, how do you feel that it's so reviled? He's dead. Vince died a few years ago. And I said, how do you feel that your programme, Love Thy Neighbour, is so reviled? And he says, everyone's missing the point. The point is, I've reversed it. So the smart person in the programme, in the situation, is the black man. The idiot is the white guy. The person you side with is the black guy, Rudolph Walker. The person you think is a complete dick is the white guy. He said, that was my point. I'm trying to show it's not a racist show. I wanted it to be cutting edge. I wanted it to be completely revolutionary, that you would see by the guy, I think the character's name was Eddie, if memory serves you right, him being such an idiot, and the other guy, Rudolph Walker, playing it in such a, you know, just water off the back of a duck. It didn't care. You'd see how stupid racism was.
And also, can I just say, how revolutionary the fact that 40 years plus later, we're still talking about it.
Well, I met Warren Mitchell some years ago at the Forum at the Eddie Izzard concert. And he, for me, was one of those shining lights for exactly the same reason. He was in a show called Till Death Us Do Part.
Till Death Us Do Part, which is again revolutionary.
And he
Johnny
played
Spate.
A racist bigot, and I had black friends in London that kept coming up to me going, "Oh, you racist Till Death Us Do." Have you seen it? Well, no. Go watch it and then come back.
The interesting thing about that Warren Mitchell, who was Jewish, who was highly intellectual, who was actually very left-wing, very liberal with the small L, you know, and socialist, and believed in all of that, but playing the absolute antithesis of everything he was in real life to drive the point home, which was Johnny Spate's point of driving the point home. That if you highlight these things by showing how ludicrous it is and how stupid it is, that's how you can often, not the only way, but that's how you can communicate it.
But there are unintended consequences to that. I mean, Oliver Stone wrote Wall Street to highlight just how terrible greed was.
But everybody loved it.
And it became the anthem for greed.
No, it did. It did. I remember seeing it, everybody adored it.
And I think in the same way that if you're racist, you'll watch Alf Garnett or you'll watch Eddie, and you'll go, oh, that's like me. And you won't actually understand that person's being mocked. You'll go, I'm the star of a show.
You just relate to it. You just think, it's acceptable behaviour.
Going back to the notion of emblems and the Gollywogs and Robertson Jam Jar, it's the thing about it is it is an emblem. I mean, I always remember, we were talking about Bill Hicks yesterday. Yeah. I always remember Bill Hicks' his great thing. He goes, I don't understand why Christians wear crosses. Do you think Jesus would ever want to see that? That would be like going after Jackie Kennedy with a rifle around your neck. Going,
the best line with that was Lenny
Bruce.
Thank you. Lenny Bruce one of my particular heroes, and Lenny Bruce said, I don't understand why girls walk around wearing crucifixes. If Jesus had been born in the 20th century, would they be walking around with the little electric chairs around their neck? And at first you think, what a facile, stupid remark, and then you think about it.
And you go, it's absolutely on the money.
And it was a point he was making. I don't agree with either of it. I think you should be able to wear what the hell you want. And I do take I tell you what I do take offence when a company says to an employee, sorry, you can't wear a crucifix. I find that deeply offensive.
I think that's ridiculous. But I do want to stress to anyone listening who is Christian and actually does wear a cross and is remotely offended by it. Of course, the idea behind wearing a cross is actually a permanent reminder as to what Jesus actually went through for his religion.
Of course.
And subsequently, it's also a case of taking it back as well. You know, it's taking back a symbol that was obviously in its day horrendous, but actually now sort of has, to a lot of people, a great deep and spiritual meaning.
But that is my point. It's an emblem. You define its meaning. No one else can define the meaning for you. So nobody can say, "Oh, that represents something." If it represents something completely different to you,
is it a generational thing? I have this because it's very interesting. Obviously, I'm of a certain age, 108, and James is 24, and it's really interesting how there are chasms between our reference points.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was doing the critic show on Colourful Radio, film critic show on Colourful Radio, and I get brought on as the middle-class white voice because I can say things because of the colour of my skin.
I love that, the middle-class white voice. Who should we get? A guy who's not white. That's brilliant. Okay.
So I can say all the things...
I'm offended by that.
Yeah. I can say all the things a middle-white guy wouldn't be allowed to say on a black show. And...
This is the madness of it all. You're like one of the best guests. This is the complete lunacy of it. Let's get the black guy to speak for the white guy. But it's just stupid. There shouldn't be any delineation.
White guys are fearful of saying something because they'll be deemed racist. You see, whereas I can come on the show and say whatever I like, and people go, "Oh, you can't." Oh, actually, you can. And I've done it on buses. I've said this sort of words on buses, and the entire bus turns around to be very offended. All white people, and they go, Oh, we know.
But has no one said, and I'm only because I think you'll take it well. Otherwise, I'm not going to punch me in the mouth. But has no one said, actually, you're not really black enough to say that?
Yeah, of course they have. Black people.
Do they say you're not actually?
Yeah.
You're like a bloke with a tan.
Hang on. What was I saying? It was an important point I was trying to.
Were you saying about being on a bus and saying?
No. Before that.
About generational.
About the image. You wear an image, and it is what you think.
No. Okay. Well, I've lost my place now, but it was really important. If I can get back to it, I'll get back to it.
Oh, well, there's no pressure. You've got 1 minute.
Yeah,
you've got 1 minute. By the way, on the end of my notes, it just casually says, listing all your achievements, Paul Atherton is also homeless.
10 years.
You're homeless?
Yeah, live at Heathrow Airport.
Yeah.
You do what?
Well, I sleep at Heathrow Airport.
Where,
what do you mean you sleep at Heathrow Airport? Jeez.
Just like before.
I don't want you to go. I need you in here for the next... No, seriously, unless you've got to dash off.
No, I don't.
Well, actually, you're homeless. Of course you haven't. So, wait a minute. I could say that. What do you mean? You sleep at... You're like the Tom... You're the Tom Hanks.
Terminal. Yeah.
You're Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Before it was cool.
You've lived there at Heathrow for 10 years.
No.
What the hell?
Don't be ridiculous. He used to live at Gatwick. What's wrong with you?
I'm stupid.
No, actually, I lived in my car for 2 before the police. How long we haven't gone?
No. You're
staying.
You're not going. You ain't not going nowhere. But special guest Paul Atherton. Oh my God, this is Men's Radio.
An epic episode.
This is like Radio. What the heck? Back in a moment.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station. Where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental wealth and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Now, if you've just tuned in, I've no blithering idea where you've been for the last 2 hours, but I can only say what a cracking show you have missed so far. We're still joined in the studio because, frankly, we didn't want to let him go. Paul Atherton is a filmmaker and someone who has, I don't like the word suffered personally, but has experienced, endured much better, chronic fatigue syndrome, joins us live on Men's Radio Station this afternoon. It's Russ Kane, Phil Dave, and of course producer James Blake with you. And for just one more hour, frankly, and my goodness me, I think we're going to make this a very busy hour indeed, because our next guest...
Hang on. I want to give a shout out to people watching.
Excellent work.
Thank you very much.
Our next guest has joined us, and we will be sure to speak to him in just a moment. Do not
Barry
adjust your
Stickins, MBE. Barry Stickins. Hello, Barry. Thank you for watching. MBE.
Hello, Barry.
Yeah, and also Rosemary Jessup. So Rosemary Jessup. So not only do we
the
have
camera people, very good.
Well, no, Rosemary Jessup. She's watching a show, but we're excited because Leo Sayer's watching in Australia. We love that. We love
it's true.
Anyway, it's true. Now then. There you go. Continue your fabulous introduction, please do.
Oh, I'm so grateful I've got your permission now. Thank
Just
you
go.
so much.
You're wearing those trousers. Just be grateful you're allowed in central London. That's all you got to know.
Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway,
have you seen trousers like that?
Yeah,
Special new guest. Have you ever seen trousers like this? Look at his trousers.
Good trousers.
Thank you very much indeed.
No one was asking you.
That was the voice.
It was a rhetorical
shush.
question.
The voice of Scott Garcia, who joins us in the studio now. Thank you. No, it's not. Is it? No, it's not. Is it? What? Sorry, you're looking very shocked. Sorry, what?
Am I?
Yeah, you're looking like suddenly you've realised you're actually a producer and what the hell are you doing? How the hell did you get to this point in life?
Am I supposed to be working right now?
Yeah, you do this on Monday. 1,000 delegates coming to the shows. Right, now before we get to you, Mr. Garcia, I'm sorry. You dropped the bombshell on bombshells on more bombshells.
The tea's coming through.
Thank you very much, Deborah Blake. James's
that
mum.
was Dennis who brought that one.
Was it? I couldn't see. I have no peripheral vision. Oh, Christ. Bombshell.
Allegedly.
You just suddenly. I just saw at the end of the little blurb. It says. It just simply says, "Paul Atherton is also homeless." And I just thought, what the hell? And he's just said, "Well, I've lived at an airport for 10 years."
No. I've lived at Heathrow in total probably about 2.5.
Oh, only. Well, that's all right then. It's not like it's a disaster.
Only 2 years. Huh?
I've lived.
I don't want people to stalk you, but what terminal?
5. Everybody lives in Terminal
Everyone
5.
goes to Terminal 5.
All right. I'm sorry. I know you're sitting there, and we're going to come to you, but this is such a thing. My greatest fear. Some people, their greatest fear is getting cancer, or their greatest fear is maybe getting divorced. My greatest fear is to be homeless. It always has been. Why? I don't know, but it is. It's my greatest terror. And you're surviving. Here you are, funny, witty, engaging, and
I'll
all
come
the
here
re-
again.
all the- we'll be the judge of it. And why, and B, on a day-to-day, briefly, because I want to get on to Scott, how does it function? How do you function?
Okay, very briefly. I lost my house. I was living in the White House just behind the Royal Festival Hall. I had views over St. Paul's Cathedral, terrace overlooking London Eye, a swimming pool in my basement.
Please don't become an estate agent. Please. Haven't got time.
And I was very happy there. And I was about to renew my tenancy and just did some due diligence, checked my credit file, discovered that there was erroneous debt on my file that I had investigated 4 years prior, had removed. So I went back to the agencies and said, "Oi, this is on my file, get it off." And they went, "No." And I was, "What do you mean, no?"
Is this like an
experiment in Equifax?
Yes, they won't change stuff. I've had problems myself.
So I
They're
went,
also not here to answer for themselves.
No, I understand that, but anyway, go on.
So yeah, I went to the Information Commissioner's office, said, "Hey, these guys won't do this." They said, "We'll take 28 days." I was like, "Fine, great. I've got to renew in 6 weeks." And they took 3 months. 12 months to respond. By which time I couldn't renew my tenancy. I'd had a crash of my symptoms. I was back in hospital for 3 months at St Thomas's. When I was discharged from there, I was discharged to a homeless hostel.
With your ME symptoms?
With my chronic fatigue,
Okay.
I was discharged from there to a homeless hostel in Brixton because the DWP didn't pay me. They whirled me out to the streets.
Sorry, hang on, stop. Why didn't the DW... I'm sorry, stop. Why didn't the DW...
I'm gonna do this quickly.
Why didn't the Department of Work and Pensions pay?
Because I was in hospital, there was a cock-up with admin. It involved Private Eye to get involved, to get Chuck Ummano, who was my then MP, to do his job. And eventually I got the backdated payments, but that was all way too late. And I didn't get paid all I was
So you're now
entitled to.
homeless?
And I have been homeless, ever since I was in hospital, basically.
And, give me a day.
Get up in the morning, try and find...
Where have you slept?
Well, I say Terminal 5 is the safest place. It's got 24-hour security there.
No, but
You've got
where are you physically
Oh, sorry, I didn't
sleeping?
realise now that you're after a concierge service as well. That's extraordinary.
Just so I've got something in the book for when it happened.
No, explain this to me. Where do you physically lie down to sleep?
You pray for a double chair, because obviously all the homeless prevention seating now has armrests in between it. But there are a couple where there's still sort of two seats where you can curl up and
no one moves you on. No one's.
You play cat and mouse with the police there, so you get there after one. Nearly everybody gets the first N9 bus from Trafalgar Square that gets you into Heathrow Airport about an hour 40 late.
Oh my goodness me!
Jeez.
You want to?
Do you know what? I'm being deadly serious. Would you? This is going to sound very intrusive, but I feel like it could be a real insight if you'd agree. And obviously, feel free to say no, because frankly, you're live and it's not very fair to put you on the spot like this. But would you ever allow sort of one of us to maybe sort of a day in the life of follow you 25? Because I really think it could be a massive insight to those who don't actually have a clue.
Happy to.
Wow. Seriously, goodness.
I'm a bit welled up actually. I don't understand, and it is the great thing about human nature, how all of this nightmare after nightmare after nightmare has hit you like a battering ram, and you're so resilient and upbeat.
That's my mum.
Well, there you go.
Bravo.
Well, I mean, where men really talk, Men's Radio Station. If you ever needed a better example of just digging down, I don't want to say. Right, Scott Garcia, thank you so much. You've been ever so patient, but it's not every day that you suddenly think, wait a minute.
I think we need to stand corrected, by the way, just stand corrected now. Is it by any chance Simon Garcia?
It is. I've been called many things.
Don't worry.
Simon
Garcia,
Scott's,
sorry.
Scott's not so
Do
bad.
apologise.
I was doing so well.
So well. It's lucky this isn't live, isn't it?
I have in my hand a piece of paper signed by Hare Blake.
Okay.
There will be P45s in our time.
I was doing so well.
I haven't fired you the whole week.
I know.
So may I just say, actually, that the dulcet tones you heard earlier on was in fact Simon Garcia, not Scott Garcia.
We can only apologise.
We do apologise. Do you know what? We deal with an awful lot of guests in this place, and once in a while it has to slip through the net. So we can only apologise and hope you're not in the least bit offensive.
Think about it this way, James. You made it to almost 1:10 on a Friday before I gave you your weekly firing.
5 whole
it's good,
days
actually.
without being
No, that's
sacked.
not bad. That's not bad
For
going.
you,
To be
this is
fair.
like a record.
To be fair, I was due, so
You were due. Right. Now,
We're all Jews. Simon,
stop it.
what is...
Simon, give me the pen, please.
Don't lose that. Simon, what is your story? I think that's the best place to start because, frankly, a load of notes can tell us so far, but actually it's probably best coming from the proverbial horse's mouth. So why don't you tell us?
Hang on. I've got to interrupt here.
Stop it.
Don't lose the pen. Don't lose the pen. So I'm thinking it's a special... What does it say on the side? The Dorchester. You gunnoff. You absolute gunnoff.
Anyway,
right.
Never mind.
Moving on. Simon, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Your story.
My story, I guess I'm someone who sort of went from, as I put it on there, sort of gone from market stall in the Roman Road to financial markets and now to a counsellor and psychotherapist. And it's been a kind of a journey full of ups and downs. And I guess the biggest part of who I think I am is really my own sort of personal battle with mental health. And now, having recently retired from financial markets, this is kind of being a big focus on what I'm trying to raise awareness and trying to help people with.
Can I be perfectly serious and not in the least bit flippant? Were you noticing any correlation between working in financial markets and mental health?
Yeah, I think what happened for me, I kind of did those things that, your parents sort of give you these things, work hard, get a good education, go to university, find someone, fall in love, get married, raise a family, get a house. I did all these kind of what I called some of these stereotypical things. And I reached a point, I guess, towards my late 30s where I thought, I've got the most beautiful, gorgeous wife. I've got 3 incredible boys. I've got a great house. My career's going well. And I just was the most miserable person around. And I think the bit that sort of hit home was when my wife said to me, it's like you're having an affair. You're not with us anymore. And I kind of was, but I was having an affair with mental illness. I was sort of waking up, headaches, stomach aches, irritable, couldn't concentrate, becoming withdrawn from my family, the people I cared about, the people I loved, wanting to stay in and just not being part of anything. And it reached a point where I lost my father when I was about 14 to suicide, and I don't think I ever properly got through that. And I reached some dark points where I would disappear and contemplate, why am I still alive? What am I doing? Why am I still here?
Despite the fact that to the outside world, you had everything.
To the outside, it was like the mask I put to the outside world was everything's fantastic. I'm okay. This guy's, probably people looked at me and
Was
said,
that an act, or was that you didn't realise you were doing that? As in, did you deliberately try and make sure that people thought that they saw the best of you and they didn't necessarily experience the dark times?
Yeah, I put on this thing that I was always okay. Anyone asked me how I am, everything was okay. And I could be miserable on my own, and we could go out socially with friends, and I'd be life and soul around the table.
Did your family know?
Sorry?
Did your family know?
I don't think anyone really tuned into what was going on. I've kind of, can always be quite a moody, angry person and be like that. But I don't think I didn't let on to anyone just how dark what was going on inside of me.
It's really the pair of you. If I had to think of trying to encapsulate everything that we're trying to do at Men's Radio Station, the two of you really are shining examples. Because, well, you, Paul, with your extraordinary stories and resilience and all the rest of it, but Simon.
You're not going to get off scot-free.
No, yeah.
Oh, there wasn't it?
Oh, that was really bad.
Really bad.
Very good. That is very good.
It's only taken me 2 hours to warm up.
That's very good. Never mind. Better late than never. And the thing is, so many people, why we came up with Strapline Where Men Really Talk is because when a guy often asks another bloke, how are you? You go, fine. If a woman, she might then open up. But guys men generally are so reluctant to say because of the stigma, because it's embarrassing, because it's not seen as manly, and all the other things that we fight against so hard on this show. So you were at Lehman Brothers.
Yeah, I was at Lehman Brothers.
Which is huge. By the way, like a quick plug, if you haven't seen the play, The Lehman Trilogy, best thing I think I've seen in like for God knows. Hey, you're homeless. How come you're going to the theatre?
Oh, I love that.
Oh my God. What is wrong with you? Seriously.
Because, I tell you why. Because...
Can I just say, that board that says night in a hostel, not on the tiles.
Oh, I see. No, the thing is, though, Paul, I tell you why I say that, because it reverses everything one thinks.
There you go.
You see, there you are. You're homeless, you're living at the moment at Heathrow, and yet you go to the theatre. It's fantastic. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. That's why I picked up on it.
What does one actually visualise homeless to mean, though? Because that could be anything.
Just horrendous.
But it
just
could be anyone.
awful.
No, but it could be anything
Of
from
course it's
sofa
anybody.
surfing. No, but it could be anything from sofa surfing. It doesn't necessarily mean you're on the streets, does it?
And even if you're on the streets, it doesn't mean you have to stop living.
Let's go back to Simon. Because I want a separate show about this. Actually.
We are. I'm telling you.
No,
if Russ won't do it, then Russ will permit me to go out with you for 24 hours. So we're going to do it.
Phil will go with you, but I would like a separate show. You back. I want to talk about this whole issue, and what we'll do, James. We'll get Shelter, and we'll get some of the other charities involved, and we'll do a 3-hour special.
Do you know what? You've just witnessed a beautiful moment. That is what we call a post-show meeting happening live on air, everyone. It's very exciting.
I haven't got time to hang around post-show. I've got meetings to go to. Right. So you're at Lehman Brothers. Everything's going swimmingly. Then walk us through this.
Well, I actually left before it all came crashing down.
Right.
I wouldn't say it was the most enjoyable environment I've worked in. Teams have been fortunate. Teams I've worked with, groups of people have been amazing. It's been like an extended family. And I think for my career in the city, I've been fortunate to work with people who have just been incredible to spend time with. But as an environment to actually go in every day, it's aggressive, it's hostile, but you kind of know what you're signing up for. You know what you're going into.
You're making a deal with the devil, really, aren't you?
Yeah, you're selling your soul. You're selling your soul to the devil. You're giving up that pound of flesh. But I knew what I was getting into.
Now, when you were working there, one of the big themes that you probably wouldn't have heard that we were talking about for 2020 is mental health in the workplace. One of the last bastions was obviously the city, because they would say, well, we can't, Simon, he's got problems, that you can't trust him to deal with millions of pounds an hour. And how was it when you were there? And I'm not just picking on Lehman Brothers, it was endemic throughout the city. So, there's no, I'm not pointing finger here. How was there any mental health help?
I think when I put my hand up and I said something was wrong, the human resources were a good team.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, they were a good team.
That's good to know.
They were a good team. I wouldn't say the people in charge of me as the trading management were particularly sympathetic. So it was more a case of what I felt, my experience was, what can we do so this doesn't end up in some sort of litigation? So I got, go to see occupational health, go and see a psychiatrist, and then go and get some therapy. But it wasn't really... was it the door open for me to come back to my trading job? No, not really. I was effectively encouraged to take a different role.
Oh, really?
And then the redundancy came some months after that, as the bank, with others. It wasn't just because of what happened to me. Let's make that clear. But
let's also make it clear that to those who aren't necessarily here to answer for themselves as well, of course. But for me, it was the positive. In finding the therapy, I realised that there was a different way to actually live, other than going through feeling miserable and stressed and anxious and making life misery for everyone around me, including myself, and having some dark thoughts. There was a door to go through where there was answers, and I kind of went through it, and I found an environment where it felt comfortable to actually talk about it, to actually be open. And I think it was probably one of the most courageous things I've ever done.
Yes, agreed.
It's not about, you don't want to show your vulnerability. If you think my upbringing, I had a loving family, but you fall over, don't cry. It was boys don't cry. This is what's expected of you.
How many times do our guests say it's absolutely fascinating?
I'm really pleased that you brought back up again the subject of what you're brought up to believe that you must have in life. Because was there ever a point that when you did realise that you had everything you were told to get, in other words, a good job, a loving wife, a family, and one could assume somewhere nice to live, whatever it is, you had everything that you were told to go and get? At what point did you think, hang on, why is this not making me happy?
Well, that was the thing. It was soon after the birth of my third son where something I was struggling with something. I kept slipping into very dark places, and I couldn't, logically, I was a trader, I was a cognitive guy, I couldn't put my finger on it. Something internally felt very, very broken, and I was just slipping away. And it was.
But when you were working, you were 100% high functioning.
Yeah, I had the ability to walk into an environment and switch on. I knew what I was there to do, but it was getting harder and harder and harder to do it. But it was really the impact it was having on my family. I was becoming more distant, becoming angry, and it was affecting everything that I'd worked and cherished. I was breaking apart, and there was just a moment where I think I fell apart. Absolutely fell apart.
There's one particular time.
I think it was when my wife said about when it was about it's like you're having an affair, but I know you're not. And when everything you've worked so hard to have, that means everything, and you're hurting everyone you care about the most, you know something's seriously wrong with your life. And that's when I knew I needed help.
At least, I mean, you're getting emotional talking about it now, and quite understandably so, but you had the ability to recognise it, which is a wonderful thing.
I think
because it could have gone horrifically wrong.
It nearly did go horrifically wrong. I often, I got the train every day to work, and I often sat there and I thought, the fast train that went through, if I did, everything that hurt inside might go away. But then I realised
your hurt would end, but theirs would just begin.
Yeah, I knew the hurt I felt for what my father did when he sadly took his own life, and I can't. I'm not the same person. I can't do the same thing, and there's got to be a solution out there.
We have had one of our shows, Noel McDermott. He's one of the foremost suicide prevention experts in the world. Broadcasts here every week, and we've also had people sitting where you guys are, whose family members have sadly killed themselves. We've also had people sitting here who've attempted suicide, and we talk about it. And I'm going to ask you a question, Dan, and we have a rule on Men's Radio Station: you don't have to answer. We're not adversarial. It's just a conversation. One of the conversations we had 2 weeks ago was we had two guys whose brothers had both killed themselves, one at the age of 15, so his older brother, who was only 19, was here, and the other guy was in his 40s, and his brother, who was a top heart surgeon in the NHS, had killed himself as well. They'd never met before, and we're talking about it. And he said something that I just want to ask you, if I may. And that was this, that he didn't think his brother actually wanted to die. He thought his brother wanted the pain to go away, and he wanted some peace. It wasn't that he wanted to die. Do you think that that's a sort of fair representation of how you felt?
I think that resonates a lot. It's hard to... I don't think... sometimes you get a feeling and it's hard to put that into words. But for me, it's, it was like when I shut my eyes or anything, there's just something inside that hurts so much. And it actually, if I could put my hand on it, I'd say it's like from your heart, just feels like it's getting ripped to pieces from the inside out.
Do you think that based on what happened with your father, that by you going through, I don't know if it's similar or not, but going through emotional stress that leads you to the point of feeling how he must have felt, presumably, before he ended his life, does that make you feel more sympathetic and empathetic towards what he did, or does it make you more cross that you're still here and he didn't have the as it were, and forgive me if this is the wrong terminology, but he didn't have the backbone to carry on, as it were?
I don't think it's about backbone, and it's hard because I think everyone's experience is unique. How I experience mine is unique to me. How he experienced is unique, and I think in many ways, I don't think it, for me, I don't look at it, it's just a personal view. I don't see it as a cowardly way out. He was in incredible pain, and to do what he did, I can't put myself actually in that position.
But what I mean is that the fact that you've had thoughts along those lines must mean that, unlike an awful lot of people who are left behind to, and I don't like some victims of suicide, but you know what I mean, those who are left behind because their family members have taken their own lives, it must put you in a very sort of bizarre position where you actually can possibly relate more to what your father must have gone through, unlike some who just say, why would you do this?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of empathy for what happened. I fully understand. I can understand the position that he got to, where he must have felt and how helpless he must have felt to do what he had to do. I don't have anger towards him. I think when I was younger, I did have anger. But I think growing up as an adult, going through my own stuff, all I have is a lot of sadness for what he did. But I can empathise with where he was.
Did his taking of his own life stop you from doing the same to your family?
I think in many ways it did. I kind of vowed that I'm not him. I'm not me, and I'm not going to put my family through what you put yours through. I can empathise with him, but we're not the same person. And in many ways, if sometimes a positive can come out of a negative, and I think this is one of these times where it did it was a big awakening. People call it a midlife crisis. For me, I look at this point as a midlife awakening, when you suddenly hit that point where you think something's wrong.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah.
With all the things that happened to you, did you ever contemplate killing yourself?
Many times. I think there's a blog post that I wrote when I was sitting in McDonald's on Christmas Eve.
Oh,
and it was like going, if there's anything like a cue for suicide, sitting in McDonald's going, it's going to be lonely this Christmas, playing over the top of the stereo was about the height of that. I mean, when all my... you get the end of your tether. You do. It took me 2 years to take the DWP to the High Courts, the Royal Courts of Justice, just to get them to email me. And there's a point where you're just going...
Did you win that case?
I won what I took the claim to, but because it was judicial review, they managed to sidestep. So it's worth reading the judgment. It's hysterical. The judge actually gets a Little Britain reference in there. Computer says no. And actually then goes on to explain what Little Britain was, which I thought was hysterical. But so I won in the fact that they've got to email me, but the way that they're emailing me is not particularly effective. But yeah, it's...
so what's... I'm going to ask the question, is what stopped you? What were the safety mechanisms in your mind to say, this is so crap, I've got to bail out?
Well, on one occasion, it was just the intervention of a guard on Piccadilly Circus. Clearly saw me acting oddly and came over and grabbed my arm and said, "Are you all right?" And that was
thank God
enough.
They did. Now,
Thank God.
Interestingly, last week we had a terrific guy in from Samaritans, and one of his main things is he has trained 20,000 people on the railways to do exactly what that guy who saved your life. In other words, walk over and go, "Hey, you okay?" Because that's what it takes. You've got to break that horrible spell. You've got to break that cycle of thought. And
you're in a very isolated place as well, aren't you?
Oh, I mean,
a little bit of...
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, at that point, I had absolutely no money to my name. My son was then 13, and he lives with used to live with his mother in Cardiff. He now lives on his own, but and it was going to be the first Christmas I'd ever miss with him. And I was reaching out to all the organisations I was a regular at, like the Savoy and Harvey Nichols, and it was like, "Can you help? I've been a customer of yours for 20 years." And they were all... Harvey Nichols actually offered to send me a Christmas pudding that required microwaving, having been told I'm homeless. And I thought that was a really lovely gesture for Christmas.
At least they offered to do something.
Yeah.
Was there
you
no...
just had to fundraise for the microwave.
Was there no... charity that you... Was there nothing? Was there shelter? Was there nothing?
Well, I was residing in Dacorum Emergency Night Shelter Dens out in Apsley, which was also a nightmare for me because it meant that I was outside of London, which is never a good thing for me. And so I was able to get inside, but with no funding or anything, you literally got to the McDonald's to use the Wi-Fi, and fortuitously I'd built good relationships with the staff and management there, so they let me do that, and they said, "Bugger off for lunchtime." Not sure why that's funny.
That is, I love that. I built up the... We're going to find out after the break how Simon Garcia turned his life around.
You're right there, Ross.
Yes, I am. I'll be honest with you. I'm very moved by this. That's I know you're being kind of semi-flippant, but I'm very, very moved by both these stories. I do
You've
get
got a very
affected.
low opinion of me. I actually was being deadly serious because anyone listening would think
No,
actually you're just
me.
making some sort of strange
No,
noise as if you're in pain.
Anyone who knows me knows I can't take a compliment. No, anyone who knows me well, I find it.
I wasn't
quite
giving you a
impossible.
compliment.
Yeah, well, God forbid, there might be a first time. Might be just once. This is Men's Radio.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I know, the Men's Radio Station, and with Phil Dave still, and James Blake, who can't spell the word.
Who lost his job? Who
lost his
almost
job?
kept it.
You're rehired because I need you for Monday. Back in a moment.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk Download the men's group's ground rules. Download the men's group's check-in round. There are loads of videos, and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental health and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Oh, I've wanted to say this to James Blake Frazier's fan, James, fan.
For those of you who don't get the joke, the fan used to be over there. So I used to go,
Fan, you point like there was a boa constrictor about to kill me.
Speaking of which, hi.
You're an idiot. Paul Atherton and Simon Garcia are joining us with their stories, which are just amazing. Right, Simon, you were saying...
Simon or Scott? I'm cool with both.
I just thought maybe Scott Garcia was like your rock name for when you were with the Grateful Dead, and now it's Simon because you're a proper qualified therapist.
Softer. Softer.
Yeah, it's softer, it's more pleasant. So, although Scott is in fact my son's name. Named after Scott Walker, because I thought he was the coolest guy on the planet. So there we are. I didn't need to throw that in. I just did, additionally for nothing. Take it. So all the price of the flame ticket. Tell us about how you then turn... So you leave Lehman Brothers. You leave this hugely high-pressure situation, which, of course, it is. That is the nature of the game. You can't... It's like being a Formula 1 racing driver. You can't say, I don't want to drive fast. That's what you do. So then what?
I actually stayed in the city. I ended up working at Nomura, but got made redundant from there. And then I ended up finding a role at Societe Generale. And at the same time, I started researching into, I wanted to do something else. And I remember the lady HR at Lehman said, you'd make a great therapist. You actually listen and actually seem like you care about people. So I researched it probably for a good year. And I found a college that fitted in with, I could do it part-time, so I could work, attended in an evening and on some weekends, so I could continue to work full-time and follow something that I know to be a big passion of mine. And it went through there, and it's about 6 years of qualifying. And in
6 years? Oh,
6 years, so you had to do an initial foundation and then a diploma, so it's a bit like doing a degree. Lots of practice hours, doing voluntary hours for charities.
Don't you also have to do, is it a year of psychoanalysis or something?
I had to do this, I had to do 100 hours in a psychiatric unit. Yes. So I worked within a psychiatric unit at Milton Keynes Hospital, and I mean, that opens your eyes up to something else. I was just very lucky to get support from my family. My wife was brilliant. My kids were very young at the time, in filling in for me, doing the football games and all that stuff. And my friends were so supportive as well. And I also had a boss. My boss at Society Generale was great. Just said, let me know what you need to do. If you need to take an hour here or there, just let me know. I think it's brilliant what you're doing. So although that industry can get a tough press, I actually, the guy I was working for, Jeff was just an amazing guy at being supportive for me.
So the thing is, though, it's all well and good to be offered help, but actually very few people know how to take it. Did you take the help that was offered?
By that point in my life when I'd gone through quite a lot of therapy, and when you're doing your course, you have to do therapy every week to get an understanding of yourself. If you're going to sit in front of someone and be a therapist, you need to know what's going on with you. So by that time, I was able to kind of actually receive help, which you're right, prior to that, I would have just dismissed.
Once you embarked on this course, which was a long course, how was your attitude, your outlook, how were you feeling now?
I felt softer. I felt a bit softer. I felt there was a part of me trying to be a tough guy or anything, but I didn't show my emotions. I wasn't one for crying in front of people. So I think I just became much softer, more open. I wasn't afraid anymore to show my emotion.
And you never saw that as a sign of weakness?
Not being able to do it. At the time, absolutely not. No, I didn't. Just it was something that was just ingrained in me prior to that.
No, because I think the kind of real learning point here is that people are told that emotions, you're just weak, grow a pair, grow up and all the rest of it. And it's not. It takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of strength. And it's not snowflakey. There are a lot of things which I rail against because I do think you're a snowflake and, it's ridiculous. All this taking offence over everything. But
Oh, you would have loved one that was there today in the news. Apparently there's some university students, sorry to digress here, university students who have genuinely taken offence at a painting that is hundreds of years old because it depicts people eating meat. And the students are vegetarian and vegan and subsequently have complained saying that it offends them and they want the painting removed. It's hundreds of years old, this painting. Yeah. They want it removed.
The world will look back and the pendulum will swing back and all of these idiots will just be... just
calm down, have a burger.
Yes, shut up about it.
You call the clapping story, right?
Yeah, the clapping story. How can you go through life? You're scared of clapping. Give me a break.
And you can't say ladies and gentlemen now in the theatre either.
Can you not? No, you can't. Apparently because that's really what the hell is this madness? It is a madness. It's like... it really is like a madness.
But anyway, those are things that genuinely you can take issue with as dismissing as peculiar.
Because it's just odd and it's half of it is... Well, 75% of it's complete bullshit. But this is something which is very, very serious because this is a major shift in how we see ourselves and how we help each other. And it's not a sign of weakness whatsoever. So now you've qualified and you have a practice. And what's the story?
Yeah, I do have a practice. I've created a practice called... my son came up with a name. He's GPS therapy. Where he said,
how did he think of that? Always the kids. They're just bloody genius.
He wasn't using a sat-nav at the time.
It's brilliant, though, isn't it? GPS therapy. What a bloody marvellous idea. Because it sounds a bit like NHS, plus it sounds like a sat-nav. It's great.
You're navigating people towards
that is
well-being.
Just terrific. I love that. As an ex-advertising man, please congratulate me. That's really good.
I will.
And yeah, James, that's what young people can do. That's what they can do.
Look, Ross.
Okay. Yeah, Ross. Idiot. Right, so, and where is the practice? Go, plug it. Go on,
there's I practice out of Radlett where I live.
Oh,
so
nice.
I've got consulting rooms and also...
Fellow Hertfordshire man, I knew it. Well done.
I thought I'd recognise you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also...
Who's your last patient?
Ouch.
Yeah, precisely.
Also got consulting rooms actually in just opposite City Thameslink in between St Paul's and Farringdon.
Lovely.
And also Wimpole Street in the West End. So
Wimpole Street in the West End. So that's all very, very good. And do you have a major area or...?
I call myself an integrative therapist, which means I different techniques.
Say that again slowly.
Integrative. So
integrative, a new word for us.
There we go.
We're loving that.
So there's different approaches, and I don't. it's pretty general. I see people, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress related, whether it's relationships, grief counselling. It can be for anything. But I think
is there anything you think to yourself I can't help you with? Have you ever stumbled across that before, where you've got someone who maybe you can't help? I haven't
come across that yet, but I imagine it, because I've only been.
Now, don't look at me. I'm just asking.
So
it wasn't fashion help. It was
no, I haven't come across that. But what I tend to do like a 30-minute consultation on the phone, just to kind of get, if they can get an understanding of how I work, and I can hear more about them. And if you reach a point where you think I just can't, then I would just say.
Would you refer them to someone?
I would.
Because that's a very fragile moment for someone. And they think, oh my God, because it goes back to what Paul was saying. Once it's identified, you feel a hell of a lot better. You think, now I can deal with it. So for a therapist to say, I don't think I can help you, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, you're right. I think it takes a lot of courage, for people to actually. I don't think people it's not like shopping on Amazon when they say, I need that, I'll click on Amazon and away I go. I think people can look for months at searching through profiles of therapists.
I should stress other online retailers are available.
We're not the BBC. Why do you
because we're not here to advertise anyone. Amazon, to the best of my knowledge, aren't paying us, so why should we give them a free plug?
They are. I just forgot to mention that. Yeah, 50 grand a week. I forgot to mention it to you.
You just forgot to pass it on.
And forgot to pass it on to you. So it's true, because if you don't have... All right, no, sorry, I was being didactic there. What is it that important to have the relationship with the therapist to feel the... Paul wants to jump in.
Oh no!
Sorry, it was only that I had a professional therapist there that I was going to ask. But
no, I was just agreeing and nodding because I've had therapists that have been absolutely detrimental to me, especially in relationship counselling, where you kind of, suddenly you've got two women in the room. And I learnt about it when I was about 13, when my social worker, a therapist, and my mother were in the room. I was like, hang on a minute, I need a guy in here quick.
Did you really feel that?
I got one.
No, but why did you feel that?
Because they were...
That's not as stupid as question as you might think, because don't forget we have women's radio station and men's radio station. Because so I can't let it fly past.
No, because there were points where the three women all agreed with their position, and I was like, you're not understanding where I'm coming from at the moment, so I need a male voice in the room. That was one.
Oh, okay, all right, I get it. But you just to confirm or deny, you weren't, because they're women, you weren't taking their opinion any less?
No, I've used female therapists. It was just in certain particular instances, that particular therapist wasn't being, objective. They were being subjective within the environment, which was not protective.
Okay. No, I can get that. So my question stands to you, which is... Yeah.
I think it's the biggest thing I think about therapy is the relationship. It's what you create within that room. It has to feel safe. It has to be trusting. And sometimes that can happen. You could have same-sex therapists. It can be opposite sex. It depends. It really depends. But the relationship is the most important thing. I've had to do loads of hours on myself, and I've had different relationships and felt I've got different things, whether it's a male therapist and it's a female therapist. Someone, for example, who might have mother issues, maybe with a female therapist, they might project stuff onto that therapist and work with that. It's hard to say at the beginning, you should try this one, you should try that one. And that's why I think it takes people a lot of time. It takes people a lot of time to decide whether I need therapy and then which therapist.
What lessons would you say that you're teaching your children that your parents never taught you? Because you were saying you were saying about how you were always told, get a nice job, family, find someone. But what have you changed, and what are you teaching your children?
I don't think it was I don't think I had an upbringing where I look back at my parents and you kind of told me the wrong things. I think it's a little bit of a message maybe I took from society. I think society, when you looked at TV and you looked at films, there was a certain portrayal of what it was to grow up to be a man.
What about that environment on the trading floor? Do you not feel like that? Because that's a very machismo place, isn't it?
It kind of is, but I played a lot of football and I felt I kind of came from reasonably tough backgrounds. So it didn't feel like a male threatening. It felt like people with a bit of an inflated ego. Okay. It's a noisy one. It wasn't ever felt
to men's radio.
It was never physically intimidating. It was just a bit noisy and a bit chippy in place.
Because that's, I think, because
chippy, James.
In that Ross, in that room of on that trading floor, it's all ego.
Massive.
So I think it's very much so like you have to. I think that environment very much fosters that false identity of like I have to be the big ego to compete.
You make that sound like a bad thing.
What?
I think it is quite a bad thing. I think if you're in a situation where you feel like you have to project something and you can't be yourself, and if you're having a bad, like it's like if you're having a bad day, they don't want to know about it, right? They just want you to dial for dollars.
You just got to get on with what you're there to do.
Exactly, and I think that's a terrible place. And then it's all ego, isn't it? It's all I've made more phone calls, I've done more of this, and then it's like, well, this isn't really.
But hang on, I think Phil's point, although said in a light-hearted way, I think there is resonance because the word ego is seen as something absolutely he's got a big I mean, walking into a room, don't you know who I am, and all that crap that we've had to endure from people who are utter non-entities, and then you meet big stars and they're absolutely charming.
Don't you know who my father is? Have you tried asking your mother?
We're going to get a little drum kit installed. Definitely.
It needs it, doesn't it?
Definitely needs it.
But if you're going to do things...
Can I just say thank you, Ben Elton, for that one? But anyway, that was one of his jokes, not mine.
That's good. Very good writer. Anyone who can write Blackadder is up there in my book. But when you have to do certain jobs in life, if you don't have the ego to say, I can do this, you're going to have a problem. If you're doing... I mean, in a stupid way... when my mind splits if I'm about to walk on stage to do stand-up, a 1.5 hour stand-up show, part of me is saying, what the hell do you think you're doing? And the other part is saying, well, they're here, they've bought tickets, it's sold out.
And then ironically it's the audience who asked that.
What the hell are we doing here?
What was I thinking?
What was I doing? So, I mean, you have to have a certain amount to boost yourself up, otherwise you'd never... and actors as well. I mean, I would have thought that, and performers, but that's just the obvious in the arts.
But is that ego or is that self-worth?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I think you've got to have an element of ego to do especially any job that you have to be loud about. So anything such along the lines of radio or anything like that, you've got to have an element of ego, because otherwise, why on earth do you think you're good enough to do it? Even if you don't think you're good enough to do it, why are you doing it?
Asking people to give up their time, to pay money, to just come and watch
now, I'm
you.
Talking about a stock trading floor. That's what I'm not talking about a performance.
But that to some degree you could argue you've got to be able to perform to some degree as a stockbroker.
I understand, but then it's that environment that it creates. It's like a dog eat dog.
It wouldn't be. Look, let's be honest. For the three of us, it would not work. We couldn't do it at all. The three of us would not thrive on that sort of.
I've done it.
What? Stockbroking?
No.
What the hell are you doing here?
Foreign exchange broking.
You were a sushi chef.
My father.
And suddenly you're a stockbroker now.
I did it for a couple of months. Yeah.
What happened anyway in a couple of months?
What actually happened?
I realised that it's not for me.
they walked you down a path then.
Yeah. I realised it wasn't for me.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. No further questions. You may sit down yet. Milad, I think that rests my case for the prosecution. That's the point. That's the point. You got any other? Were you ever an astronaut? I forgot to mention it.
Well, I have been to the moon.
Have you got any other fun facts for us?
Yeah, fun facts. We've got two guests here.
It's a vicious environment. Without a doubt.
But at the same time, that vicious environment that you speak about is in many different environments, in many different industries, and that ultimately breeds, to some degree, a willingness to actually do a job, A, potentially properly, and B, actually, to get higher than your other...
It definitely breeds like competitiveness and makes you work harder and strive further. But at the same time, it's not good for one's mental health. If you're going through certain issues, you need to talk.
Can we ask the person who was there, as opposed to us?
It's a very long question, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I think it's relative to. It's always relative to the individual. I think it's important to note that people get anxious and stressed in a variety of different ways. In different roles, different jobs. Somebody could give a presentation in front of a school and suffer with huge stress.
Yes, indeed.
Giving exams, the journey to work. There's different areas where you get
journey to work.
The financial markets, yes, on trading floors it breeds a certain character, but maybe it's somebody who's more robust towards that
who's more
environment
used to being in that place.
can handle it, and somebody else can't. But people in different roles get stress and anxiety, and I see, funny enough, you see clients from a variety of different backgrounds. I think when you walk into that, within a year or two, you know that that's not for me, that particular thing.
But my problem is
within
that
2 months.
2 months for some people.
Yeah. I feel like it doesn't breed communication, and it leads to being, very isolated. And I think being isolated is a bad thing, because I think you get to work and you think, right, this isn't my team, these are my rivals. I'm here to compete. I'm here to make more.
I could have to disagree with you on that point, because I think communication relationships is in many walks of life, and I think how we communicate is a big reason why I see a lot of clients. But the people I work with, the wider organisations maybe, but the teams I work with, they were good people. They were supportive. It was good fun. The hardest thing for me was going to work when the environment had changed, became very regulated, and you actually, what used to be a bit of banter and fun, you could find yourself in front of human resources, possibly with some litigation. Maybe with good reason, maybe not.
Can we look at that for a second? Because, I've alluded to my background's advertising. I was a copywriter for forever. And in the heyday, it was as wild, much wilder. I can't even discuss it on air. It was every bit as wild as The Reputation, and I adored it. And it was very cut and thrust, and it was pretty aggressive. And I was with a hardcore agency, and we grew from nothing to be the number one in the world of below-the-line advertising, from nothing. And I adored it. I absolutely couldn't wait to get to work every day. And a lot of other people, we're still friends. And funny enough, somebody just messaged me a second ago. And
what, they don't know you're on air?
No, they do. They want to actually add something about depression. It's interesting.
Oh.
And I love that environment. But only subsequently, when we've met up, they said, a lot of people fell by the wayside. They couldn't take it. It never occurred to me, because I was having it was like having the biggest toy box in the world to play with, and I never saw it I just saw it as loads of fun. But do you think now, and I got to be really careful, because obviously we're trying to make great strides with the radio stations, do you think it's too regulated? I'm not talking about the financial regulation services, because we can't go through 2008 again. It was a disgusting disgrace and appalling. But I'm talking about the way people can talk to each other. Do you think it's too far? What do you think?
It's a tough one, in the sense that you never know what may not be offensive for you, may be offensive for somebody else. So it's really hard to know. My experience from within the working environment, do I think it's gone a little bit too far? Personally, I did. I think you kind of had to watch yourself where something probably wasn't offensive, but you never know where it got. I mean, I'm Jewish. I got hauled up for anti-Semitism at Lehman Brothers.
Well, that's a trick.
And at that point, I actually said, I think the world's actually now gone mad. Yeah. And it turned out it was the biggest load of rubbish that somebody had complained about. I said, this is when, to me, it's just, something's gone mad.
You, with your golly dolly things, it's extraordinary.
Even I think it's gone too far, and I'm the millennial.
You do?
Yeah.
Even I think it's gone too far. Even I think it's at a point now where it's like you almost just. It's like you can't even look at people anymore.
You know what it is, James, and in all seriousness, and this comes back to what everyone's been saying in the room. It's who has the right to be offended. That's kind of the
Everybody
thing.
has the right to be offended.
You've got the right to be offended, but it's
nobody should do anything about it.
It's always this. I'm offended on behalf of, but they're not offended the same way. And it's a kind of silly example, but in a way it's not, because it's very focused. It's microscopic, but it expands out. You were not offended by the jam symbol. It meant nothing more to you than it does to me.
And therein, and that is where I think that the world would be a much happier place if we stop getting offended for other people. So, for example, with me, and first of all, let me just stress right now as well that I'm one of the people who fronts, to the best of my knowledge, London's only Jewish culture and community podcast. So before anyone starts getting funny about what I'm about to say, just watch it. Okay?
Send the boys round.
Phil, I've got to say, we're all trembling with fear, but move on.
Yeah, no. In so much as that I don't understand where the issue with the Y word comes from. And I say the Y word because I know people listen to it and they get offended.
What the one that people chant at football stadiums?
Yes. I've absolutely no idea where the offence in that comes from. It actually was a word that for many years I was brought up in my family using that word, describing ourselves as such. And, you know...
I didn't know people took offence.
Well, no, because it was... What? Are you joking? You're not actually allowed to use...
People scream it at football grounds.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to use the Y word. But that's another example, because actually the N word is used a lot within the black community.
I hate the fact that I'm even doing this on radio, and I'm doing it out of courtesy to everybody else rather than... But calling it
Please don't. I will take offence to that.
But calling it the N word, by definition, gives it far more power than it should ever have.
But that's sort of my theory as well about the so-called Y word.
You're scared to say it, and when somebody does deliver it, it has 10 times more power. It's like the C word on BBC television. When somebody said that, the entire country imploded.
It gives it a shock value, doesn't it? Yeah, you give it some...
You see, the thing is, words, as a writer, just words are words, and I don't... No, sorry, words are words. What?
If you just think words are words, you've never been in advertising. You know that they can influence. You know that they can change opinion. You know they can...
Says the man who introduced a brand called Nokia no one's ever heard of. Yeah, no, words are words.
He knew words are words because he saw it written down somewhere.
I did that. I saw it on a wall near your house, oddly enough. Phil Davies Innocent was next to it as well. Right.
Free the bushy one.
I'm not even going to go there with that one. Right, so it's been interesting. I would love, first of all, only because we head to the top of the hour. I don't know where the time's gone. First of all, I want to say...
I don't want this show to end, I'm quite enjoying it.
If I didn't have other meetings, I think we'd ramble on. So, first of all, we would love you both to come back.
Happy to.
Seriously, because there's so much more to talk about.
And promise we'll get your name right next time.
Yeah. It is Simon Farsier. That's what it... Yeah, James, you see, this is what happens. You screw up, we never let it go.
Now, do you remember I said to you before, Paul, he occasionally goes a shade of red? This is around now.
Almost puce.
There are aircraft heading for Heathrow thinking it's a beacon.
Diverted.
Yes, they're diverted to Covent Garden. First of all, I want you both to come back. Secondly, thank you for coming in. Thirdly, how can people get hold of you? So plug it away.
Okay,
go ahead.
I will plug it. My website is www.
Come to the microphone.
That's my way of saying come to the microphone. That's the trick.
Closer. www.gps-therapy.com.
www.gps-therapy.com.
Yeah, or just look for me you see me on Facebook. Simon
just to
Garcia.
clarify, with the GPS doesn't necessarily stand for anything. It literally is in like a sat nav. GPS therapy.
It is around sort of navigation towards your...
Oh, it's a terrific idea. And you can either love it or hate it. So apart from coming to Heathrow Terminal 5...
No,
because you've made loads of films.
I have.
I'm touched on that.
I'm writing a play at the moment, and I'm trying to put together an art project next year called...
my man's even featured in an advert for Pret, which I think is brilliant.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Which is hysterical.
I mean, that is a classic example of how my life pans out, right? There was a guy standing outside of Pret a Manger, and I was going for a free haircut, and there was a guy standing outside Pret a Manger. No. I was on my way to the bar.
That sandwich tasted funny the other day.
And there was this guy handing food. I thought, oh, thank God, because I hadn't eaten in 24 hours. And he was like, would you like to try a wrap? And I'm like, yeah, perfect. And he goes, if you'd like to be on camera, we'll give you another £5 gift voucher as well. And I thought they were just doing market research. Yeah, sure, no, whatever. And so I tasted this thing, and they asked me some questions, and I buggered off and got my free haircut. And of course, I'd signed a general release. Of course. Fine, whatever. Next time, one of my friends going, hey, Paul, love the advert. And I was like, what advert? Pret have just launched their vegan advert, and the funniest part about it is it was for...
was it pre or post haircut?
It was pre-haircut, which is really annoying.
He explained the narrative very clearly, Phil, if you were paying attention.
And it was for tuna, but actually I hadn't tasted the tuna at all. The CHUNA, it was their new vegan range.
Oh.
And I'd actually had the duck one, so the reaction they got was for a duck one. And I just thought it was really funny, because I was like, all I wanted was the food, because I hadn't eaten in a day.
Wow.
Good Lord.
Very, very quickly, when you're writing these projects, where do you go? I mean, don't give the address, but where do you go? Because I know what it takes to do this stuff. You've got to get your head down, you've got to write. How are you doing it?
Well, I'm a fellow at the RSA, so I tend to spend most of my time writing that.
Sorry, you are the most complicated fellow ever.
But if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter.
Oh, get out!
Londoners London. I'm on Instagram.
Hang on, stop. What are you?
So at Londoners London on Twitter.
Londoners London.
And Londoners London
Londoners. Sorry, it's the Welsh accent. You can't say Londoners, London. You come from Wales. For goodness sake.
Lovely.
Right, he was there.
I think it sounds great, like.
And obviously, I'm Google Maps, one of Google Maps' top London reviewers, one of TripAdvisor's top London reviewers.
You are joking me.
I'm top 1% in both.
So am I, but why?
Oh my God.
Like holding that back.
It's the weirdest thing in the
Have
history
you
of
really
weird.
not looked at my Wikipedia page?
No, we haven't looked up your
I
Wikipedia.
don't know. What do you think?
I don't trust Wikipedia.
Well, it's a good thing.
No
I mean,
offense to
yeah.
Wikipedia. But then again, having said
James's face
that,
is an absolute picture of what the actual.
oh my God.
You're hilarious. You are both friends.
London is London, yeah. Wow, this is bizarre.
Wow.
It is bizarre.
So don't forget, by the way, to retweet. I can't believe I'm saying this to you, Mr. Terminal 5, but can you retweet life? Never. You see, this is why what you do is fascinating, and why I love this. You never, ever. No, you think, well, I've done it all, seen it all. Then you hear conversations like the pair of you and go, I haven't even scratched the surface, man. I haven't even touched the sides of this thing. Absolutely amazing. Well,
You've got way more followers than me. That's really annoying. Hashtag just saying.
Yeah, hashtag you. I can do a quite neat thing. Hashtag time's nearly up. They all
Don't
nodded.
give that
Smooth.
crap. I said, for
Come on,
goodness
that was
smooth.
I thought that was pretty.
There speaks a man who's blatantly no bloody idea how social media works. Come on.
Who? Me?
Hashtag time's nearly up. Really? Really?
Yeah.
They're short and concise and to the point, a bit like me.
Hashtag International T-shirt Day. Just
And
saying.
on that note,
Indeed.
Let me thank my guests formally without having to rush, because I normally get to this point and then James is looking like he's about to have a coronary because we're about to run over. So
wait, can I just triple check something very, very, very quickly? Were you actually in lights on Piccadilly Circus?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm the only person who've had a film screen on the Coca-Cola billboard at Piccadilly
Oh, for
Circus.
heaven's sakes, right, that's being discussed off there. Right, there you go.
50 seconds.
Simon Garcia, GPS therapy. Thank you so much. Your story was good. I know you got an absolute pleasure. We're going to have you back. I know you got emotional. Thank you for sharing. I don't take these things lightly. You know, we're asking people the most sort of personal things. You're really bearing your soul, and bless you for doing that, Mr. Media. Honestly, I don't know what to make of you. Paul Atherton. Paul, thank you very, very much indeed. My thanks
pleasure.
as
Thanks for
always.
having me.
My thanks as always, and thank you for being such a good sport, Phil Dave. James Blake, I don't know what I thank you for, just for turning up, basically. It's just, frankly, but then we know the show's going to go out.
May I say, the pressure is all mine.
Yeah, it is. For everybody watching in Australia and all around the world, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Russ Kane. Till next time, stay safe.